This is Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
It's an honor to have you back on, Brother Rodnell Collins. You are the son of the legendary Ella Collins, the elder sister sibling of Brother Malcolm X. And it's just so timely to talk to you right now about the state of affairs, about your uncle who would have been 95 years young this year in 2020. And also you've been gone from the planet in the physical form for 55 years, but his spirit is very much alive right now. So how you doing this morning?
Yes, sir. I'm doing fine, and you can say hello to my son, Arjun Collins, who's the curator of the Malcolm X Ella Collins House in Boston. You can just briefly speak with him and say hello and introduce yourself to him.
Hey, greetings, good brother. How you doing today?
Good, brother. How's everything?
I'm great, man. You sound like your dad, man. I sound like Malcolm X to me sometimes. I think I'm talking to Malcolm X.
Yes, I get that a lot, but I'll let you speak to the original.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for doing this work, though. We need this legacy to be more available and accessible to our young people right now, because they really need the guidance and inspiration.
Of course. I mean, your radio and your station seems to be at the forefront of all that, so I'm wishing you the best.
Thank you. I received that, bro. I appreciate that so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, Brother Hurd. You're back, as I should say, with the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has some work to do. He's about to go and do some work on the site. So he I'm putting the young man to work, and we have to pass. We won't be here forever, so he is the curator in charge of the Malcolm X Ella Collins House here in Roxbury, which is a city, state, and national landmark now being recognized by the U.S. Department of Interior, as is the property in Omaha, Nebraska, the birth site of Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. That's a national U.S. Department of Interior and Park Service historic site.
That's excellent work, man. I'm glad that the legacy is living, that is accessible to the people, and hopefully for generations to come. So, I mean, Malcolm, like I said, it's just timely right now. His timeliness, the timelessness of Malcolm, considering what's going on in the world of state affairs. And I just want your take on, what is your take on what's going on, what's happening right now with the George Floyd protests and other things?
Well, of course, any of our people, African and Native American people who have been terrorized, raped, and murdered, and a lot of our folks like to say disenfranchised. Disenfranchisement is should not be a priority for us when we've been terrorized and raped and murdered for 500 years, and there are people who are physically sick and disabled, mentally, physically, and their focus, like I spoke to you earlier, my mother said that their focus is on material gain, that dollar, and our focus should be on our minds and our soul, and getting that correct first. And as Malcolm said, you've lost your mind. You've left your mind in Africa. And so many of our people, in his own words, are mindless of their action and don't know what they're doing. They believe that being black is a skin color. And that's what they are primarily focusing on. If you ask them, what does it mean to be black, be African, black in America, 99.9% of them can't tell you. They cannot tell you. I know in a lot of schools across America, and the way the media goes, a lot of our young people think Martin Luther King wrote the Civil Rights Bill. Martin Luther King didn't have a thing to do with the Civil Rights Bill as far as in writing it. The person who was responsible for that significantly so, was Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, who was the chair under the House in Congress for the Health, Education, and Welfare Department, a significant person long before Malcolm X, long before Dr. King, long before Medgar Evers. But you hear nothing about that man, who is significant to much of what we're enjoying today. But you don't hear our children or young people talking about Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, who African Americans and European Americans are enjoying the fruits of his labor. But it had to take two white men, two presidents, to recognize Congressman Powell for his work, President Kennedy and President Johnson. But so that reflects on where we are today. Our people, and as Malcolm said when he addressed those in Selma, Alabama, the SNCC students, that he was sorry for he himself not doing enough, sorry for our ancestors not doing enough after more than 150 years or 500 years in this country and still suffering. The evidence is that. Just visit the Smithsonian, the National African American Museum in Washington, the Smithsonian, and see some of that history from 1492. It's there. But they prefer to go out in the streets and talk and march and hope and dream and pray. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's no blood, sweat, and tears. Malcolm talked about revolution. That means to overturn. To overturn. They talk about. That's all they're doing. They're talking about something. But what are they doing in their home, in their community, and with others in the nation and around the country? But marching. You know, Malcolm wouldn't approve. My mother wouldn't approve. She, in her own words. She's on YouTube. We don't have to. We were born free. Freedom is a state of mind, first of all, and your condition. You know, there was a song back in the day, brother. I don't know if you know about it, but there was. I can't remember the singer. They said, "Oh, what a condition my condition is in." All right, and our condition is such that, as Malcolm said, we've lost our mind, and so a lot of young people out here today. It's not my opinion. It's what Malcolm, my mother, my father, and those in our family that had struggled for so long, and the others, Dr. King, had spoke about. Dr. King, of course, would not approve of this. Breaking a window at Wells Fargo, jumping on somebody's car. What does that accomplish? That same amount of time and energy you were doing, you could be teaching a child in the community, volunteering in community, teaching in our community. It's not about European Americans joining us and Black Lives Matter. Black lives should matter to them. We don't have to raise any signs. Let them do all the sign raising. I can tell you from traveling around the nation, I see more Black Matter signs in white communities at their churches, in their community town halls, as it should be. And they need to get amongst themselves and get their own act together. And we need, as Malcolm said, we need to be amongst ourselves and stop the violence on each other, the murder, the abandoning our children, having babies that we're not taking care of. That's our future. How are you marching for the future if you're being destructive? As I said to you earlier, be aware of the destroyer. That's what my mother said. Be aware of those who destroy and who are not constructive. Be a builder. Be a builder, not a destroyer of anything. European Americans and Europeans have been, their history shows, speak nothing but destruction. That's what they have been about, and they are still about. There are those who are trying to change that, and that's what Malcolm talked about. We should not be law-abiding, go about our business and do what we have to do, in our community, amongst ourselves, getting our minds together, first and foremost. This other stuff that they're doing, Malcolm, my mother, and I do not support that type of action. They're calling it violence when, much as Malcolm said then, the violence that happened when blacks or Native Americans would demonstrate in some sort in America, the violence was coming from who? Not from us. Mm. The violence didn't come from Dr. King when he was marching and the others that marched with him. The violence was not coming from us. As it was then, it was coming from European Americans who swore that they were Americans. And the same thing is happening today. They plant people within our organizations, within our struggles. Malcolm said himself, if we have a problem with each other and we're doing harm to each other, let's get in the back room and duke it out and solve our own problems in our community. Let the Europeans, Americans, go in their community, in America, in Europe, in Africa, Asia, South America, and solve their problem. They know what it is. The problem is not a problem of skin color. It never has been. But we believe, and many of their own European Americans believe, as Malcolm said when he gave his speech in 1964 at Oxford University on the condition of our people here in America and the type of European Americans, white people, that are of white supremacy or white racist. There's a difference between a white supremacist and a white racist, and you have to understand that. What is that? And those that are of the aristocracy and of the royals. You have to study that history. It has never been about our skin color. It was about who we are as a people. We are the first people on this planet. We were blessed by our Creator to be here, not just thousands, but millions and millions of years ago before these people, and create civilizations to where we are today. And they've expanded on that for themselves. And they taught us, those that were weak enough to hate our color of our hair, or what the texture of our hair or our skin. And those that did not, or they could not subdue, they terrorized and killed them. And they left. You know, it's like separating the wheat from the chaff. So we have a lot of chaff out here, as my mother would say. You separate the wheat from the chaff, and that's exactly what we did. We have a lot of people out here that today that are a lot of chaff. They don't know what they're doing or talking about because they're not in their right mind. I know I've talked to some people, and they praise the fact that European Americans are marching with us, and that they think that's a good thing. How is it a good thing when we can't even march with each other in our own community in peace? And we're killing each other in our own community, in our own homes, in our own schools. What kind of sense does that make? What kind of analogy? Malcolm talked about you have to critically analyze. Critically. Not just helter-skelter and run off and we're going to put some signs together and go downtown somewhere and march. And then you get a few fools who are planted, European Americans who are planted, or those that look like us who are planted in these marches to do the type of things that are happening, burning cars and breaking windows. Why did that not happen, brother? All those years that even before Dr. King, our people, since emancipation, were demonstrating and marching in peace. Who committed the violence? Are you aware of who committed the violence then? I'm asking you, brother.
Oh, yeah, the Europeans, the European Americans.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that goes back, way back even before Emancipation Proclamation. Who was committing the violence upon us? Who was committing the violence on Native Americans? Even Native Americans now are realizing that how they've been terrorized and duped Here recently, we know of the biggest crime of rape and murder on the reservations of Native American women. And a lot of them are running around thinking it's their own people. And now they know it's European Americans coming on the reservation and kidnapping their women and their children and taking them off the reservation somewhere else. But the reservation police can't go off the reservation and arrest these European Americans for these crimes when they investigate and find out who's committed the crime. They cannot do it, and that should not be. And that applies to us. When crimes are committed on our people, and Malcolm talked about this, very strong in our community. We are derelict in our duty. We have no business out here marching downtown to ask these people for justice in a march. There are books. There are laws. We have all these so-called historically black colleges who were primarily founded and funded by European Americans. For what purpose? But you have these lawyers who look like us and doctors that go to these universities and come out here, and what do? My mother spoke about this a lot. You use their laws. What Malcolm talked about on human rights. Malcolm talked about human rights, your God-given human rights that are recognized in the UN by other white nations. And at the time he was alive, the United States had not signed on. United States government were the founders, contributing founders to the United Nations, but they had not signed on to certain treaties and agreements in the United Nations. And one of those were human rights at that time. So they were in violation of human rights. And so Malcolm talked about, it's not about civil rights. That's what somebody gives you. But recognizing your human rights and sign on to that. You don't have to beg him for anything. And we should not be about that. We can seek justice for ourselves. We don't need to, what happened to Brother Floyd, his family, my condolences to any of these men. But do you realize, brother, how many women, black women, and keep it quiet, that are raped and murdered? Do you realize how many people disappear off the streets? And we think they're in jail, and they've just disappeared. I've seen this as a teenager in my lifetime, where police have kidnapped, taken our women off the streets and gone off somewhere and raped them and then dumped them back here in Boston in the South End or Roxbury, and they better not say nothing. That happened in New York. That happened in Philadelphia. It happened in Detroit. But our women, that's how you end up. History shows our women being raped and end up pregnant with these babies. And there are families, whole families, that have gone through that type of terror and trauma. And nobody has done nothing, not even our men. Now, a real man, when you mess up with our women, I know that's the way I was raised. And so wasn't Malcolm and his brothers and his sisters. When you see something, you hear about it now. They tell you, when you see something, say something. Well, with my mother and the rest of this family, you see something, you do something about it. Mm-hmm. Okay? You see a white man accosting a child, a woman, or another man, such as Brother Floyd, and everybody standing around. That's why a lot of times my mother were in trouble with the police. That's how I was raised. That's how Malcolm was raised. We don't need to ask. You defend that which is ours. But there are those that are not willing to bleed. They want to hope, dream, and pray. There's no blood, sweat, and tears. They're afraid to do that. So as Malcolm would say, don't talk about revolution or change, because change means blood, death. That's what will happen when you want to make a change. It means the risk of your life. One of the things about Patrick Henry, talked about liberty or death. He wasn't talking about death of somebody, himself. He was talking about those who would not give me my liberty, and I have to take it, which may require death. That was what the American Revolution was. Everywhere you turn in America, you see the American flag. Everywhere you turn in the South, you see some Confederate flag. European Americans want to fight their brother and father, that whole Civil War, because they wanted another kind of liberty from their people to do what they wanted to do, their way. And they've done the same thing in Europe. That's their history. That's their legacy. That type of terror. And unfortunately, a lot of our people are into destructive ways. We have been here, as Malcolm said, and lost our minds here. I left our minds in Africa, and we have become so much like them. Everything we do is that of the white philosophy and ideology. You see it every day. They're quoting some Socrates or Freud or Aristotle. We live by his code and ideology and philosophy. Malcolm said, no. We come from a great people. Great people of civilization, the first people, the first ones to create civilization. I don't know if you were aware here in Boston, there was a exhibit from Africa, a Nubian exhibit, which is a Greek word, of here at the MFA, the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston. It was here for 8 months to a year, of our civilization in Africa, one particular ethnic group in Africa, black folks. 4,000 years ago, brother, before these people even knew how to make bricks or build castles with stone. And that exhibit was here. And I talked to a number of our people here, teachers, that came out of there, and some of them were dumbfounded. They still couldn't believe it. Either they couldn't believe it. Now, I'm not talking European Americans, but these were scholars, professors, teachers, who could not believe they were seeing something of a black woman or a black man 4,000 years ago. Metallurgy, science, technology, math, alphabet, out of Africa. What happened? But here we are today, begging, in her own words, my mother, Brother Malcolm's sister, Ella Collins, who helped raise him even before my parents, Kenneth and Ella, brought Malcolm to Boston. They were supporting Malcolm's siblings because they lost their father, who was assassinated in 1931, was by white folks. And the family was supporting that. And my mother's intention was to bring all her siblings to Boston, to the now historic landmark here in Boston, Roxbury, 72 Dale Street, which is now called the Malcolm X Ella Collins House. My parents, my father wasn't keen on the idea. He would say to my mother, I married you. I didn't marry your whole family, Ella. I married you. But you, as I said earlier, my mother was about, if you want to be with me, this is what you got to do. What's that song, I think, by J.Lo? Was it J.Lo that wrote that song, Brother Hurd, if you want to be with me, what you got to do?
Somebody wrote that, but it sounds just about right. It's like a woman that, is about the business of being about family.
Right. So if you want to be with me, this is what you have to do. And that was my mother. Mm-hmm. And she had that same issue with her first two husbands. That's why that didn't last long. She divorced them. And the first one was a doctor. Mm. He was light brown skin. Now, can you imagine back in the 30s, a black woman, black as the ace of space, divorcing a light brown skinned man who was a doctor, Dr. Lloyd Oxley, because he did not have the courage, Jamaican, he did not have the courage of his conviction. Mm. And, hey, if you want to be with me and you can't do what is necessary as a black man in America and coming out of Jamaica, Bye.
Oh yeah. It's interesting. I'm glad you speak about your mom in such glowing terms. Your mom really doesn't get the respect or the acknowledgement that she should. Like I told you, it bothered me that Spike Lee did not include her in that movie that everybody loves so much, the biopic of Malcolm, which is like, not as accurate as it should be. So, I saw interviews with your mom online. She's very brilliant, insightful, loving. She obviously loved and worshiped Brother Malcolm. She spoke very highly of her brother and did a lot for him. So why is it that she's not better known for her contributions?
Well, first of all, brother, my mother is better known, and she didn't care about being known. As far as she was concerned, being known is what you do. Mm-hmm. In her own words, it's what you do. Just like she said, Malcolm will be known. You will know him. And at that time, she would even know him better. In her own words, if you just those 20 minutes on YouTube, mm-hmm. you would know him better and you would know her better. It's not about Spike Lee. Leave Spike Lee alone. Spike Lee was one of those people that he was hired to do a job to represent what our people who were mindless and did not know who they are, that would believe whatever was put in front of them by someone who had already done some work and in film, and those that felt that he had done a great job, and the powers that be saw that many of those that looked like us praised Spike Lee for his word. That was a marketing tool. My mother had been on that film project that ended up in Spike Lee's hands, that was hired specifically. We were personally involved in that from 1967 up until the time of Spike Lee and Sheikh El-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz, Malcolm X widow, Dr. Betty Shabazz. She was involved after they couldn't get to my mom. Initially, it was Columbia Pictures, and I wrote about this in my Seventh Child, family memoir of Malcolm X, how that went down. It's supposed to be 800 pages, but powers that be that time, they were concerned about being sued because I was giving too much information, and they were concerned about liability. So it ended up being a 250-page memoir, and we're doing more writing on that. But to say to you here now on your program that we had been involved in that so-called, people like to call it Spike Lee film. It's not a Spike Lee film. There was a European-American, and I think he was of Canadian background or director that was to be the director. But Marvin Worth and Warner Brothers, when it ended up in their hands, it went from Columbia Pictures, who originally in the 60s, they had talked to my mother, Art RVA and James Baldwin writing the script, and it was to be Sidney Poitier was to be the actor. But they didn't want to deal with my mother properly. And J. Edgar Hoover at the time threatened the one of the vice presidents of Columbia Pictures at the time about doing anything that would put up on some high plateau of Malcolm or Dr. King, any black man or woman in America. So they backed out, and it went over to 20th Century Fox hands for a while, and then subsequent with that, it ended up in Warner Brothers and Marvin Worth. If you look at the end of the credits in that so-called Spike Lee film, you will see Marvin Worth. Marvin Worth was the boss, not Spike Lee. Spike Lee is the mouth. Spike Lee is the mouth. Okay, that's all he was. And even his producing work, his name is there as a producer. And yes, he did some directing, but there were issues. There was issues he had with the Saudis in Saudi Arabia that as last I knew, have not been resolved. It may have been. I don't want to misspeak presently, but at that time when that film was released, there was issues with the Saudi Arabian government on the film and production of Malcolm X film, and the issue of Mecca and the Kaaba and how that was done and what was promised. But these people who were behind and putting Spike Lee out front, they knew what they were doing. And the money they put behind it and the people they got behind it, it worked. They spent a little money. Having Denzel Washington wasn't something that happened by accident just because he was a great actor. My mother had picked Denzel Washington when he was in drama school in New York, and there was an individual that had done a play on Malcolm, and he had was in that play, and the director of that play, you can research the school that Denzel went to, asked my mother to come down, that he had a young man that they thought that had a future and possibility, and we have him playing Malcolm X. So my mother approved of him then, and later she wasn't against Sidney Poitier because he was known and she liked Sidney Poitier, but she liked the fact that here you had a young black man at that time that was very young and played Malcolm. And so even coming forward to today, the movie that Disney is doing in partnership with others, and the actor Nigel Tish, when we finally selected Nigel to play Malcolm in this movie series it's done with Disney, I and Professor James Smalls, who is consultant with Disney on the film, and who is on our foundation's board of directors, the Malcolm X Ella Collins Family Foundation, we looked at the actors that were selected to play the part of Malcolm. I think it was 4 to 6 different actors at the time. But considering Professor Smalls and I, Professor James Smalls and myself, considering the history, and this is what our young people need to do today, you have to know the history of something. You have to critically analyze what has happened in our history and the past. And that's what I looked at, what my mother had gone through with the movie industry at the time that wanted to do a movie on Malcolm, but she would not go along with the jive that they were putting down, which was to give what you see today. You see 2 different Malcolms that didn't. That's not Malcolm X. The narrative, to create another narrative. The narrative being, well, Malcolm, when he went to Mecca, he changed. When he come back, he loving all white folks like he was Daniel on the road to Damascus, and he had an enlightenment all of a sudden. That's not true. Malcolm had gone to Mecca previously. There were European and Mideast and Asian and African Muslims here in America, going way back. And so we know they were Arab Muslims, white Muslims, all kinds. It was not something Malcolm didn't know. He had been to Mecca on Umrah tour in the late 50s, 1959. But that's the narrative that those in media, in institutions, and who have an agenda to portray a black man, he's all forgiving to white folks for their crimes against humanity. How can you forgive anyone who have, or any people who have a history of more than 2,000 years of committing terror across the globe? How can you forgive them for their terror, even to their own people, and you just march? It's an insult. It's an insult. It's an insult, brother, even to their own people. If you study the European history and the violence and the terror and the evil and the genocide that they've committed long before 1940s or 30s, that they have been committing on the people. I know a lot of our people do not know. You need to read about the African Holocaust. I don't remember the writer, but the African Holocaust that had taken place before the white Holocaust of Europe under the Nazi regime, that the Kaiser and the aristocracy of Europe, when they brought in Hitler to do their dirty work, and Hitler then brought in Heinrich Himmler and Goering. Heinrich Himmler and Goering's, both their parents, the fathers, were already committing genocide of the same that they were doing in Europe on black people. They had already experimented and cutting off the arms and doing all kind of medical experiments on black people in Southwest Africa, present-day Namibia. Read about the African Holocaust. Google it and get the book, The African Holocaust that was committed in Southwest Africa. And this genocide on our people is nothing new. It's nothing new. It's been practiced for a very long time on our people in Africa, Asia, South America, and on Europeans themselves. And they're doing it today. But they can't get away with it in Europe as easy as they used to, because you have somebody like those in Eastern Europe, somebody like a Putin, or those before him that they could not control. They're not going to have that anymore. You're not going to practice your colonialism or capitalism or your exploitation of us and not share the wealth, because the wealth of Western Europe was not shared with the East European. And I can tell you, having studied and gone to university in Bergen University in Norway, and have studied these Europeans as I was asked to do by my mother, understand the nature of a thing. As Malcolm talked about, understand the nature of these people. If you do not understand the nature of these European Americans and these Europeans, critically analyze. This is what Brother Hurd, our people are not doing here today. It's happening, don't get me wrong, and it's happening, but not just here, it's happening around the world. They're waking up today. As Malcolm said, there will come a time will tell, when you have young people. This is just the start. This is just, in the eyes of the Creator, 1,000,000 years is like a wink. This is just a wink, brother. Only a wink. But when our people and others realize what has happened to them, how they've been duped, how these young people, European Americans, have been duped by whom? The same people that duped us, aristocracy and the people of power, who goes way back. They're not about your skin color. They don't care about that. It's about your power, who you are as a people, where you come from, the first people, what you represent. You're a threat to them. You're a threat to their existence because they know who you are. And for us to run around here about Black Lives Matter, if you don't realize that your Black Lives Matter to you, it's up to them to figure that out. Let them put up their Black Lives Matter in their churches and their towns and their steeples and their organizations as they should do. As they should do.
So, Brother Rodnell, I want to ask you, so much stuff you just put out there. Like putting out all this information. So I want to just backtrack a little bit. Is it true that your mom, Ella, funded a lot of Malcolm's trips to Mecca and other places overseas?
Everything she funded, brother. Uncle Malcolm didn't have no income. Well, the other brothers, his brothers, Uncle Philbert was a salesman, furniture salesman, and insurance salesman. Uncle Wilfred was a business administrator in human resources for Michigan Bell, which later became Verizon, and he was with the chairman of the board of Michigan Bell at the time as an advisor. All the family members had jobs as they were teaching in the nation and out, But Uncle Malcolm's job was a full-time job. He was a field marshal. He was a drum major, as they would say, for the cause. Okay, he was out in the field, on the ground, always 24/7. Uncle Malcolm didn't have any money. What stipend he got out of headquarters, and he was going around the nation and setting up, when he was in the Nation of Islam, and setting up these temples and mosques. The nation didn't have any money, brother. You go back and check your records. Look at, just check your history, do some research. The Nation of Islam before Malcolm even was my Uncle Wilfred, Uncle Filbert, Uncle Wesley, and Uncle Reginald. When Elijah Muhammad was in prison, the government had arrested him under some fake, trumped up, whatever they could get to stop a black man from telling the truth and talking about the truth. But it was his wife and Minister Elijah Muhammad's brothers and his wife, primarily Sister Clara, who kept it going while Elijah Muhammad was in prison. But his illness, Elijah Muhammad's illness, affected the organization. They only had a few people at the time. As my Uncle Wilfred had talked about in ABC broadcasts, where the Nation of Islam, in I think the ABC broadcast that was done, also in the movie documentary for PBS, Malcolm X, Make It Plain. Malcolm X, Make It Plain. You can get that, go online, and there's a picture book on the movie Malcolm X, Make It Plain, and you can read some of the quotes and comments by members of, Malcolm's siblings, Uncle Wilfred, Uncle Filbert, my mother, and myself. But the thing is, the nation only had a few people. And when my mother's siblings became part of that nation with Mr. Muhammad, who Mr. Muhammad's family was related to us down south on the side of Malcolm's father's side, distantly, but that was kept secret, was kept quiet. Even the federal government didn't know it at the time. That was kept quiet. And that was the main reason why Malcolm's family joined after the Garvey movement fell apart, for the same reason, with the federal government destroying anything that has to do in America about uplifting our people mentally. They always find a weak link if you allow it to. But, there are other links too. And how you make the connection. Make those connections, as Oprah used to like to say, I think. Make the connection. And Malcolm's siblings made the connection. They transitioned from the Marcus Garvey movement over to Mr. Muhammad's movement, philosophy, and ideology at the time, which was unorthodox, Ahmadiyya Islam. But then you have to understand, why did they become a part of Mr. Muhammad's movement? Not only because the energy and time the family had put in the Marcus Garvey movement, and prior to the Marcus Garvey movement, many of Malcolm's families, what was kept out of and what Malcolm didn't talk about, and other family members, they were Masons. Malcolm's father was a Mason. His grandfather, his mother, whole line of them Masons and Eastern Stars in the South. Now, you have to understand that I'm talking about Prince Hall Masons. How far does that go back? And then you go back to before they were Masons, they were Muslims in Africa. There were many that were Christian, but on Malcolm's side, many were Muslims. There were some even Hebrew in slavery. But how do you keep that how do you keep that heritage and that legacy? Fortunately for us, Malcolm stood on shoulders of his ancestors, my brother. That's what he stood on. Malcolm didn't just pop out like some of our young people think today. You can just all of a sudden be who you are. Even President Clinton tell you that. The Europeans tell you that every day when they talk about their great wonders that they've done, their great white civilization. And it's true. It is great. It is great for them considering the barbaric culture that they came out of. I just told you about the civilization thousands of years ago. It goes beyond 10. It's 200,000. They know our civilization goes back millions of years, and it is documented, and it's documented, my brother. It's documented. They have the documentation. So when you hear European Americans talk about how great they are great for their people, but we are a billion times greater if you want to talk about and put some material philosophy or ideology on it. So don't waste your time, as my mother said, with that. Don't waste your time out here trying to talk about your freedom. You've been free for millions of years. You're the first people. You're the creators of civilization. So who can best be about freedom than us? And you're running around here acting like you know what you're talking about. These young people don't know, and the people that they are associated with that are manipulating them, and they don't even know it. That look like us. Yes.
Yeah, I got to ask you, because, I mean, you got so much, you say so much, you know, like when I talk to you, you got so much information. And, like, I think people have to re-listen to a lot of things you're saying because you're giving so much. And I just want to track back a little bit to the Malcolm X biopic thing with Marvin Worth. My understanding from what I read is that Sister Betty sold his life story rights to Marvin Worth like $100,000.
No.
Has made so much money.
No. Sister Betty, Dr. Betty Shabazz, Aunt Betty, as again in my mother's own words, Aunt Betty, you have to understand, my brother. Here's a black woman, a beautiful black woman in America, married to Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a challenge. Believe me. The sister, she was 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful sister. Just coming out of college, learning, and this is one of the things Uncle Malcolm admired about Aunt Betty. Black woman, black, beautiful. Uncle Malcolm, many times they were lighter. Listen, Uncle Malcolm was afraid of marrying a light-skinned woman and having light-skinned children, and then out here walking around like you're somebody, because you're that color thing that my mother spoke about, that our people and European Americans exploit you on that to make you think you're somebody more special. I mean, they use that divide and conquer all over the world, even amongst their own people. You're blonde and blue-eyed, you're better than the dark brown, dark-eyed one. That jive, they put that on their own people. So Malcolm was deeply concerned about that because he saw that in families, in African-American families, and in our history. So he was a minister, not administering Elijah Muhammad's philosophy and interpretation of Islam, but he was also, Malcolm X married people. He married men and women, couples. That's what he did. I did not understand it at the time. I didn't, from what I knew, I never heard Uncle Malcolm went to divinity school. But I was a young child. I was a teenager. I didn't know that you could get a license in a state, such as here in Massachusetts. My son, he doesn't have a divinity, he never went to divinity school, but here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as in many other states, you can get a license to perform weddings. And so Uncle Malcolm did that. He performed weddings for those in the Nation of Islam that he approved of. He lived as he preached, is what I'm saying here to you, Brother Hurd. And that's how he chose his wife. He would choose and approve of a man marrying a woman and a woman marrying a man if he was going to administer that marriage. He would research them out for the prospective wife, if this is a good husband, and for the brother and his family, if this is a good wife for you, and you're going to be part of the nation, because we're about nation time, building a nation here in America so we can go forth. So part of that was Malcolm being a minister of marrying people, and he did study and get a certificate at Boston University when he was incarcerated under these people here in Massachusetts. He studied divinity and had there was a divinity school in the prison. You don't hear anything about that. You only hear about he was debating. But while he was debating, he was even preaching then from the pulpit. It wasn't just debating. And he was preaching to everyone, black, brown, green, red, or yellow, that would listen. And so he was ministering to the flock while he was in prison and received a certificate while he was in prison from Boston University Divinity School. They don't tell you that. So when Malcolm was out here, and answer to your question, and choosing a wife such as Sister Betty, he wasn't choosing her just because she was beautiful and black, but her mind, he needed a wife that would raise his children and be a husband and deal with him. It's not easy, as I said, being the wife of Malcolm X, and they didn't grow on trees at the time. My mother had someone in mind for him, two someones, but they were lighter skinned. One of them we knew very well, and another was an Egyptian sister that we knew through someone else, a sister Zuad Muhammad, who helped my mother open up the Surrey little preparatory school here in the south end of Boston that is in the documentary Malcolm X Make It Plain. But no, Uncle Malcolm had told my mother, no, we already have enough problems, Ella, in America with this color thing amongst our people. I want a woman that will understand our problem and our plight in America. That was primary and foremost. So, and as he says himself, out of his own words, in his book, I guess I love my wife, Sister Betty, at the time. He didn't marry for love. He married for womanhood, black womanhood. That's what he married for. And that itself, you have to love black womanhood and understand that. And that's when he married Sister Betty. Now, Sister Betty didn't fully understand all that. She was 22 years old. She was some parents that had adopted her out of the South, and come to find out years later, after my uncle's assassination, she's related to us too. She's a distant cousin on another side of the family from down south. So she's like fifth or sixth cousin. We didn't know that at the time, but it was a beautiful thing. But Uncle Malcolm didn't know it. My mother didn't know it. I didn't know it. Nobody knew until my mother and I, when she was alive, we were doing some deep research going back. So when Aunt Betty is left alone back at the time that my mother was involved with this film, they couldn't get to my mother. They got to Sister Betty, because the lawyer that she had, Percy Sutton, who had his own issues then, and as we know later, there were issues. He had issues then, and we were not. When my uncle was alive, he served a purpose, and my uncle was satisfied with that. But my uncle was assassinated, and Percy Sutton didn't perform his duties satisfactorily to what my mother felt after her brother's assassination and the widow of her brother's. You know, she was not comfortable. There were issues. Percy Sutton was playing it. He was playing the family, and that being on Sister Betty's weakness. And my mom, there were issues. Families have issues, and when a woman that is pregnant with a man that she has 6 children with, and 2 in your belly, and it wasn't long before he was assassinated, found out about that, and then 1 on your arm, it's still in diapers that you're breastfeeding, and then 3 on your coattail, and young. And now that she was didn't know which way to turn, because her family was not organized. They were coming out of the South trying to get their act together. They weren't in the nation. So Aunt Betty was out here. She had been now with a real man, her husband, and all these babies. And so she was traumatized. The sister we were so afraid, my mother and I, and a couple of other members of our immediate family that were with us and helped supported Uncle Malcolm and helped my mother pay for his funeral. We didn't have to raise money. That was a media jive that Percy was putting out, Percy Sutton. That was jive talk. My mother, they had insurance on Malcolm way back, plus whenever he needed money, she gave it to him. She financed everything. But Sister Betty, being not wanting to listen to her anyone of her own mind, that being my mother, who had proven herself in business, had proven herself with her family, her brothers, her siblings, and listening to other people whispering in her ears, such as Percy Sutton, you're a woman, you're a widow, this, all this. I mean, these people play on these widows. They play on Mrs. King. They preyed on Mrs. King, excuse me. They preyed on Mrs. King. They preyed on Mrs. Kennedy and any weaknesses that these widows of these assassinated men, they've been traumatized just losing their men and these children that they have. People have to understand that. I've seen that. I've been around that. I've been around the Kennedys. We knew about them way back in the 50s. And as my mother said, how Mrs. Kennedy was raising her sons. There was a connection there that goes way back. But that's something that the public will know about later. These three men had crossed paths here in Massachusetts, very close, right here in Roxbury. So, and then here are these women who are having these babies and carrying these children and the trauma. And when you see that, my brother, and then think and see that how our women around here in this nation, around the world, I've seen it, I've felt it, I've touched it. It traumatized me, okay? So I had an attitude. You come near my cousins or my aunt, you got to deal with me. I don't need nobody. I don't need no army, no. You're going to deal, and I'm not coming to talk to you. And that's the way my mother and I functioned. When we were taking him to bury him, my mother and I knew when we were alone. We didn't depend on anybody else, whatever security, whatever National Guard. We depended on us. And so my mother had her pistol, her hand grenade, and whatever money she needed in that big bag she carried. In that car, we're alone and with the boss agent. We were concerned about Betty losing those babies and being already traumatized and giving premature birth. So she and people talking into her ear, such as Sutton and the others, that and the ex-wife of actor Sidney Poitier, and all this celebrity stuff and people in her head and her soror sisters and all this business, and not paying any attention to an established family who have suffered as well, but who have a proven track record. She didn't want to listen to that. And particularly my mother. And my mother's a very strong person. She did not, Aunt Betty did not want President Kwame Nkrumah's offer to go to Africa and teach at the university. That was offered, University of Ghana in Africa after independence was offered. It was offered to Uncle Malcolm a professorship there, full professorship with a home, and the children would be safe there and living in Ghana. King Faisal offered full support. Come, Brother Malcolm, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, to be here and help us to understand what is happening in America with Islam in America and what you're about. So that was offered to Malcolm, carte blanche, my brother, for her and Malcolm to be there. So we're turning all this down, and someone talking to them, she, at a weak moment, she sold the lifetime rights. I believe it was 50. It wasn't 100,000. It was in Jet Magazine or Ebony for $50,000 to $75,000. Research it. To the lifetime image and rights of Malcolm to Time Warner, and Time Warner had Marvin Worth, and Time Warner and Marvin Worth shared that. I believe the Marvin Worth estate, I think it's 50-50 or 49-50. So Marvin Worth's estate on a film that grossed worldwide as of 10 years ago, $1.5 billion, and none of Malcolm's estate receives any benefit from that.
Wow.
Okay, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Not her before she passed away, because that was her. And my mother had warned her about that. She had been warned and told her not to, how to go about doing this. And as my mother said in her own words, she was over her own mind and didn't want to listen. And I had issues with my mom and my Uncle Wilford and Filbert and Wesley and Reginald, Aunt Bonnie, Aunt Hilda, Malcolm's third oldest sister. Aunt Hilda lived with Aunt Betty for 5 years to help Aunt Betty raise those children. Oh. And she could not do it any longer because Aunt Betty did not want to listen. So Aunt Hilda left Aunt Betty's home in helping raise those children, but she did have those 5 years with her nieces to help them. And Aunt Betty, again, people are talking to her now. She is, going for her doctorate and all this, and other people are talking into her head and what you could do and what you shouldn't do. And meantime, had nothing whatsoever about Malcolm's family, legacy, and struggle, and talking to her about that and standing by that. She went her own way. And, people say, well, she's a grown woman, but, our folks often talk about what you should, coulda, shoulda, woulda. And you look at anything of power in this nation or in Europe, and who is running and who are the people of power. They have a fist. They're not divided. A family divided cannot stand. So is it for a nation. And when you have someone that will divide and separate themselves from a family that has a track record, then that you're out there winging it. You're winging it, and Aunt Betty was winging it. So that's how that goes.
Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing that. I think that's a very powerful lesson. This is like, when Little Richard passing, and he said he invented rock and roll. He played a big part in creating what is known as rock and roll, but he lost his publishing for many years before, I guess, Michael Jackson gave it back to him. But when you were saying all that, I'm thinking about, people had a lot of criticisms of Coretta Scott King when she went after, securing Dr. King's legacy. And, the family held their issues, but if it wasn't for her securing his legacy, they wouldn't have nothing to fight over. Because she actually, did what she had to do to make sure his legacy was in place. I mean, the King Center was started just right after he got killed. She started that idea, but people in his inner circle said, don't do it. Coretta, let it rest. She worked on the King holiday. Basically, after he just died, she started working on that for years. Then it became known. But I look at what Coretta did versus what a lot of us don't do, and I commend her for that. Although you look at the family, they're dysfunctional, but everybody's family got issues like you talked about. Y'all had things going on. Everybody's family got that. That's normal.
Well, I can. Yes, we can all have issues, and we do. But you go in the back room, and it wasn't all Mrs. King. It was Daddy King and Mama King. See, again, Mrs. King did not do it alone. Just like my mother, all of us. Nobody, Mrs. King, Coretta Scott King, did not do that standing alone. Soul trooper, Mrs. King. Don't believe that foolishness. Nobody, my brother, to be successful stands alone. Don't believe the foolishness you hear out here today, even from European Americans. Oh, I built Apple. I built this, and I built that. No. Bill Gates didn't build Microsoft alone. He had his daddy, who was a lawyer, to understand how to build a company, to form a company. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett is not alone. He has his partner, Munger. Warren Buffett still has the house in Omaha, Nebraska. that he grew up in, what he learned from his parents. Nobody stands alone. Don't fool yourself. That is, first of all, that is not. If you want to understand, when you hear young people talk about today, how do you know? What does it mean to be black? To be black means to have some consciousness of who you are. To be black, you have to understand your Africanness. Okay, your Africanness. In many kings and pharaohs and chiefs in Africa, to this day, I know of 5 kings. You don't hear of 5 kings. And I know of 5 queens in Africa. Okay, there was a king of Rwanda just recently who lived here in America, who went in self-exile. And another king was selected, but a woman chose him. You just don't become a king or a chief. There's somebody the shoulders that you stand on.
That's not even what I was saying. What I'm saying is it takes a person with vision for people to get around to support. She had the vision and the courage of her convictions, because Coretta put that thing in Dr. King. I studied Coretta. Dr. King wanted to marry a white German cafeteria worker when he was in seminary.
Right.
And then his family wanted to marry Maynard Jackson's aunt, who was an opera singer. So what I'm saying is Coretta put that in him, and she was like an Isis to his Osiris. She resurrected her husband's legacy from the ashes and made sure it won't be forgotten for generations. She had that vision, but she had people that rallied around her in the village to support that. See, I know how things work, but the thing about it is,
well, I'm not going to take credit for
don't have that village mindset now that we used to have back in the day, because we were forced to be a village because of the laws and the restrictions.
Right. Well, Mrs. King, and you are correct. Mrs. King, even though they both come out of the South, Mrs. King did have, like Aunt Betty, as I said, like Aunt Betty, what Uncle Malcolm saw in her. All right? Dr. King, I know, as you said, Dr. King is looking at a European. And early on days, Uncle Malcolm had dated a lot of white women.
But all of them do that, don't they, Brother Rodnell? Everybody. Marcus Garvey had a white female playmate. All of them did that.
Yeah, but somebody has to snatch you and clue you. Mm-hmm. And then clue you on to what? When they snatch you from over here and you go over there. And you know, people set you up. See, our people seem to think that when these happen to this men or women, it's just somebody you fell into and you saw you like. No. There are people out here in our community, brother, that deliberately go out and what do you see? What's happening in the black community? Come over here and tell me, what are your people going? Who's talking? Who's saying this? Dr. King was up and coming. Don't forget, with all due respect to Mrs. King, it was Dr. King that's in the grave. It was Dr. King that went out there every day and put his life on the line. It was Dr. Medgar Evers who went out there. Yes, not taking any credit from these women. They were home to raise these babies, because after Dr. King was gone, who had to raise those babies? But each and every single one of them. Yes, they had their own visions. But you cannot have a vision and be black in America or anywhere on this planet unless you're standing on the shoulders of others. Don't fool yourself. Civilization has not progressed like that. And I know, because we had family in Daddy King's church. Daddy King and those, and Mama King and those people down there, brother, that, also Mrs. King, Coretta Scott King, I forgot her first name, her people, felt that, her family members felt that she was higher than Dr. King. She was above in her status and kind of coming down. There's, you know, in some of these churches, you know, they got the church thing. They prefer you to marry in your own church or marry this one over here. So Mrs. King had to deal with her own family too. And so the two of them, you know, it's they had to jive together. And Dr. King coming on to Mrs. King as he did was also the blessings of Daddy King's church and Mrs. King's family coming together and making sure that she marries a strong black man and making sure that the King family marries a strong black woman. Down there in the South, brother, it ain't easy. I don't know if you're in Memphis, but Malcolm's family come out of that deep South. They're Georgia folks. And I know my mother would tell me, because my mother's family knew of them, all them ministers. Don't forget, Malcolm's family was a minister, and you can't, and his father was a minister, and his father's father was a minister, and they were Masons. So you can't be a Mason and a minister in Georgia, and nobody don't know of anything else that's going on in some county or somewhere or some church, and when they get together or have their conventions and people talk. So it was a blessing for Dr. King and Mrs. King to get together. It was a well orchestrated. How do you say when you have coming out of the South, when the elders kind of maneuver to kind of make it so, you know, somebody's in the presence and they kind of push you one way, but you don't know you're being pushed.
Right. I know. It speaks to what you just said. Like, for example, when you were saying about Daddy King was not always behind his son on this civil rights, social justice thing.
Right.
If you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, Daddy King was pressured by other ministers. Like, you talk about these ministers. A lot of black ministers didn't like Dr. King. They had no love for Dr. King Jr.
Right.
So he was pressured to try to bring his son back from Montgomery to Atlanta into the pulpit in Ebenezer. But Dr. King stood his ground. More likely he stood his ground because he had somebody like Coretta backing him. Then he had the community of Montgomery putting pressure, like you said, pushing him to greatness, forcing him to be the leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association, forcing him to be the face and spokesperson of that movement up there. So it's a village, of course. And he's pushed, but if he didn't have, Daddy King said years later that he glad that his son stood his ground and kept true to his conviction.
Do you know about
his son's vision like that?
Do you know what Dr. King and his ministry here in Boston at the church here at AME in Boston in Roxbury?
Tell me.
Are you aware of Reverend Haynes here?
I heard the name before. I heard Reverend Haynes' name
Yes,
before.
Reverend Haynes. He died a few years ago. Reverend Haynes and the I forgot the name right now before Reverend Haynes. But when Dr. King and the people here at AME Church in Roxbury, when they had discovered, and Dr. King, when he lived in the South End here, not far from us, on Massachusetts Avenue, and there's a plaque there today where he lived while he was at Boston University.
So much black history in Boston, man. I keep on forgetting all that history in Boston of black people.
Yes. Well, you have to know the South End of Boston. And, you know, when you're up here in Boston and a black woman or a black man and you're supposed to be about something and you're around black conscious people, or even if they're not that conscious, they are uplifting in what they're doing in their righteousness, whether they be Christian, Muslim, or Hebrew, or Mason, or whatever. So Dr. King was encouraged and coached while he was here in Boston University. And you need to study that. That's why Dr. King's papers, it was not Mrs. King. See, I was in court. I spent all but 3 days. You know, the case was here in Boston court, okay? And I saw that case. I was in court from the morning it started to the end. And another brother and I, we had some children. A few children we were able to bring into court because most of the people in the court were reporters and they were from Asia. There was only one African American in the courtroom, Mal Miller, who is the founder of the Bay State Banner, and he didn't stay as myself and this brother that brought these children. And Mrs. King, the only support she had from the black community in Boston in the courtroom, I'm not talking about with some folks, they bring her house and all that stuff, was Dr. A.L.L, who was the chair of the Harvard Foundation, who was great support for her while Mrs. King was here. And I was in court and heard the evidence of the King papers and had an opportunity to speak with Mrs. King in the judge's chambers. Mrs. King... brother, you know, as I said, you cannot do anything because she actually, it was settled later. She had lost the case. And she was her own worst witness. But Boston University and the almost 100 million, I think it was $500,000, or according to the university president, Mr. Silver, Dr. Silver, who was on the witness stand at the time and testifying to the fact the millions that the university had raised and put out. and the discrepancy in what Dr. King wanted and what Mrs. King wanted and all this. And there was a lynching, of course, of Dr. King's papers. We like lynching Dr. King all over again. But and that's still an issue today. That's still not. It's still not settled, as is Malcolm's papers at the library, because people, we have a problem. We have a problem. And when we're divided, and those that are around us, and people see the division, and they exploit it. And unfortunately, I believe it is one of the things that why Mrs. King is not with us today, in being, the stress of trying to keep that together, but also not having people around her who have a full knowledge and understanding. Neither did she. Neither did Aunt Betty. Neither did Mrs. Evers. Neither did Mrs. Kennedy. But what helped you supplant that, you need people that understand what you're going through and will sincerely help you without any motives. And we are fortunate to have what we do have of Dr. King. But one of our problems we have here in America, we put all our vestiture in America itself. There's the continent of Africa, the motherland. And a lot of our people, as Malcolm said, you don't want to have nothing to do with it. I ain't got nothing over in Africa. You do. You lost your mind in Africa. You need to go there and get it back. You need to go to Africa and get your mind back. Your vestiture is here. You put too much in America. The European American does not put all his investiture in America. You hear every president, including right on down to Obama, that tell you there is a relationship, a serious binding relationship, not just strategically, with their motherland, England, Europe, the continent. Study that and how that works. Every single solitary white person in this country of Irish, Italian, Scotch, English, Russian, or whatever has a right to go back to their motherland, even though they're U.S. citizens, and partake of the fruits of their ancestors. And I don't mean in talk, in education and in economics. All you have to do, as they say in America, pull yourself up the bootstrap and get going and be a part of your legacy. And as you see in America today, every time you go to a market or go to the library or turn on the TV, what do you hear them talk about? They talk about their Americans. They're Americans, how the American flag, and they wave this flag. But they also talk about and they read and study and praise their ancestries. Aristotle, Socrates, Louis Pasteur, King George, the books that they put in our schools to our children and talk about always refer to their ancestry and their legacy. And my Malcolm's sister, Ella, my mother, fought here in Boston for that, and there are others fighting now. And to get that history, that's what black studies are about. That's what Congressman Powell and Malcolm was working on. That's what my brother worked on. That's how we have black studies in these colleges and universities around the nation and around the world. It's not perfect as we would like it, but this is something that Malcolm, working with Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell when he was chair of the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee in the House, and my mother later on, and my brother, and those that come out of San Francisco State University, and those demonstrations that started in 1967 or 68, how that evolved over to CCNY College in New York to get some education of our people, of who we are as a people, into these universities and then into the schools. This is what we need to invest in our future and our children. And how do you do that? You do not put all your investment in one basket. They tell you in America, diversify. And you see this is what these people do. We don't diversify, brother. And we don't want to, because of the division. in our community because we are mindless. We don't want to diversify, and many of us, we do not want to seek some knowledge and who can shoulders that we can stand on that will support us. We don't do this. We don't do this. This is what Malcolm and the family was doing in the nation. This is what nation time is that they talked about, and nation building, the support of each other. No, we're not supposed to go out here and seeking the support of some European American and Black Lives Matter. That's not our legacy. That's not our history. We didn't come from millions of years back to where we are today to go out here and be seeking something with people who are trying to terrorize you. Let them first. If you want to work with us, then Malcolm talked. If you want to be, Brother Hurd, or any of your listeners want to be about Malcolm, don't talk about Malcolm. Anything is quotes or say anything about Malcolm X, Sheikh El-Hajj Ali El-Shabazz. Not even Dr. King got off that stuff way back. Read his last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. They don't want you to talk about that. His last book before the man was assassinated. You would think you're reading Malcolm X. I'm not talking about the King of I Have a Dream book. I'm talking about the Dr. King.
Right.
Okay? And my mother, I didn't like Dr. King. I didn't like Dr. King at all. Okay? I didn't like Dr. King at all. And when I say I don't like him, not as a human being, but I didn't like or care what he was about. But you know something? One day, my mother pulled me aside, and because she went to Dr. King's funeral. She's right up there, down there. And she said, no, he's a Southern black man out here fighting for something. He's not out in the bar room. He's not out in the streets hustling. He's not pimping. He's not shifting and shaking and shiving. He's out here, as I said to you, what my mother said, trying to build something. He's a builder. He's not a destroyer. Dr. King was building. Congressman Adam Clayton Powell was about building. Malcolm was about building. You never heard Malcolm talk about anything and destroying anything. You never heard about Dr. King destroying anything. You never heard Medgar Evers talking about destroying anything. Move forward. Go forth. Build. They all talked about building. Building not only your soul, mind, body, and spirit, and the content. Dr. King talked about the content of your character. Build on that character, who you are as a human being. Malcolm X talked about your mind, the same thing. Build on that. Seek out. Seek and you shall find.
Okay, Brother Rodney, I want to get to some certain things before we get out for the end of the conversation.
Sure.
I want to. You talked about Nigel Thatch, the guy who played Malcolm X and Selma, but also for the series Godfather of Harlem. I want to ask about your perception or your take on that series. What's your thoughts about the series? How accurate it is in terms of relationships between Bumpy and Malcolm and Adam? How were they portrayed in your opinion?
It is. I've been on set, brother, and I have to say, first of all, let me say I am thankful and grateful to Forrest Whitaker and his staff and Paul Erskine, him producer, director is at the time they're still working on it. It was 5 or 6, including Professor Smalls and those that he knew, who's a consultant on the film. And Disney. But you have to realize it is a movie, drama, fictionalized based on fact. And I'm aware of that, and I was made aware of that. That said, this is not a documentary. Okay? This is not a documentary. You go to PBS or educational programming. This is streaming of Disney, and the Disney people put out quite a sum. And as you know, if you do your research, when you see these streaming companies, what they put out, it's not chump change. But being on set and having that opportunity to be there, invited by them, and meeting the particulars and some of the particulars and the principals, and the final actor Nigel Tish, who was not 6'4", by the way,
I could tell, right? He got a big head, though. You need to have a big head to be a movie star. He fill up the screen with his head.
Well, brother, you said that. I did, but
I mean, you think that's true? Though, like, look at Ben Affleck.
Well, no. I'm not going to go over the no. I'm not. I don't know where you're going over the left side or right side. No. I leave Nigel alone. Okay, he's Nigel. I praise Nigel. I love him, and I told him as such because listen, Nigel, brother, I got chills with looking. Listen, I never sat behind a director's camera before in my life.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm sitting in the director's chair looking behind. I had that opportunity to see that, and I'm brother, it's like being in two dimensions. I'm looking at the camera, and I take my head around, and I'm looking. I would not want that job. I tell you this right now.
Wow.
Okay, I would not want that job of putting that together, of looking in the camera and then looking, moving, taking your head out from behind the camera, then looking at the set, and go over and look at the set, and I'm going back and look at the camera, and I'm saying, this shit's real, man. This is stuff. This thing is, excuse my
no, you're right.
American Swahili.
Okay.
Yeah, but seeing Nigel on camera, and then seeing Nigel, as I said, he's not 6'4" like my uncle. Okay, Nigel has to step up on the fact we were talking at the studio, and he was going to his dressing room one day, and he went up one step. Then I saw the 6'4" Nigel. But when he stepped down, I'm looking at a sort of a downward trajectory. But he is what Nigel has all said and done. And jokingly here, I love the brother. He was sincere. He asked me, "Do you think I'm doing this, brother? Do you think I'm?" He was happy that Professor Small was there, but he was more pleased that I, being invited to the set and to see the selection of actors, and then see that we have Nigel to work with. I could see. I don't know of anyone else in the acting field, unless you create someone. I never heard of a Nigel Tish before. I like Idris Elba. He's known, but I do know there are a lot of South African actors, and there are a few Asians that could play Malcolm. I've known of a few. Few. When I say few, as far as the physicality, as far as the deliverance, that's tough. And the deliverance and mannerisms, Nigel is not 100%, let alone 1,000%, because I expect 1,000%. He's not 100%. But to do the work that Nigel has to do, what we were appreciating and what we were about, Professor James Small being a consultant to the Disney people, who is on our board of directors, as one of our board of directors, and who also was one of the personal private secretaries of my mother. He didn't know. He never met Malcolm. He only saw Malcolm speak. But he lived in our home. Professor Small lived in our home with his family for 5 years here in Boston, Massachusetts. So he knows of things of Malcolm from my mother, and having been her secretary. Some call him bodyguard. Professor Small is, I wouldn't call him a bodyguard. He's not a bodyguard. Brother James Stock, who was my mother's chief bodyguard, he is a bodyguard.
You said James Small has never met Malcolm X?
No, he never met Malcolm.
It's like when I see him on interviews, it sounds like he had a relationship in terms of being a bodyguard or meeting him. So no. He never met Malcolm X in person. He met Malcolm on the street preaching. Oh, okay. So he never introduced himself like formally. Okay, I got you.
No, that's what I mean. Let me make that clear. He never formally met my uncle, but he's been to rallies of my uncle. That's how he came to him and his mother. His mother, Professor Small's mother, came to my mother and asked my mother if she would take James. He wasn't a professor at the time. He was out of the military and in college or coming out of the college, and trying to start his life and career, and his mother asked my mother if, and her son being an admirer of Malcolm and all this, if she would take Malcolm under her, Professor Smalls under her wing. And my mother did, and my mother liked him very much, and she loved much about Professor Small, mother and father, so she did. And he ended up in our home with his wife and family, Sister Carol, here in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So he knows. He's my brother. Professor Smalls is my brother in spirit and in mind. We disagree on things, but Professor Smalls knows what he's supposed to do. And we're fortunate to have him there with Disney to see to it that things where you have something that is a fictional narrative based on fact and history. The book that was written by this person, Bumpy, that Malcolm knew in his life, was written by, I think, Bumpy's niece or daughter.
Oh, we're talking about Mamie Johnson or Mamie Johnson.
Right. I believe, yes. And the family sold the book and their connections and relations with Professor Smalls knew certain people, and they knew he knew about something about Malcolm, and they wanted his technical advice, or this type of thing that is required, or some movie houses require, and they've done a very good job. As that said, it is a movie and it's a series, and a lot has to be condensed. The relationships that is portrayed, there is a narrative that has to be. I don't want to get out here in front of the people at Disney and their partners, so I won't do that. But what I can say for our part, and what I've seen on set and meeting the principals and the people involved, and Disney's involved in it, I praise the work very much so. And the reason why I do that is, like other projects that documentary and film, the false narrative that's been out here with Malcolm in the legacy, this addresses that. The Disney film addresses some of the false narrative. And what you must understand, what happened is going on in the Disney film, there was a drug problem, an addiction in our community in America. And Uncle Malcolm had started, and he had asked my mother's support back in the 50s. I remember this when we were going to New York to visit him and other family members in New York City and Jersey. We drove around Harlem, and I'm sitting in the back seat, and my uncle wanted my mother's support in everything that he was doing, to not only just join the nation, but in any other kind of way, if she could donate funds to the nation or his projects, in setting up a drug-free treatment program. And what Malcolm set up in Harlem, in New York, was the first drug treatment program set up by an individual organization and an individual in America, in our community, to help our people who had a drug addiction. The program was set up for those in the Nation of Islam that became Muslims and that wanted to kick the habit. So Malcolm had taken this to the city of New York, talking about a very successful program and taking that around the nation, but it was in the temple. My mother took umbrage with that. My mother said, well, you need to expand on this, Malcolm. It's just not those that in the nation or you asked to join that got themselves up off the street. This is what Malcolm, when he preached, he talked about uplift yourself. Well, he'd be the one that when you come out, you have to come out to the FOI meetings, and we have to come to your home and counsel you and work with you, and he would do that. He would do that and bring people with consultation, those that had experience in our community of working with our people psychologically and mentally and spiritually and physically. Malcolm set up that program. And so that's what you see in that movie, that this young lady, Bumpy's daughter, that happened. That woman was brought to Malcolm so Malcolm could help her. And
so that's actual true. Okay, I didn't know that. All right.
That's part of what happened. with this young lady in that part, and people like that. So there's a timeline here, and the relationships evolve to in the movie now. How it evolves in real life, that is another story. But the point being is that Malcolm is about a drug treatment program and solving the problems of our addiction amongst our people in the community, that in the Muslim community, who had become Muslims and they were kicking a habit, and he was helping them with that. So that is fact, and so that's why Professor Smalls was there to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. But a script has to be written, a series has to be done, and you can't tell a man's life history and story and his community work and his civil activism in a few series. So Disney and the writers and Paul Erskine and others, one of the producers, and Forrest, actor-director Forrest Whitaker, has done a great job. And Nigel has done a fantastic job, and I wish him all the best going forward. That's all I can say about that without getting ahead of anything here.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I want to bring up a couple of things with the portrayal of the drug, how they portrayed the drug treatment program. Some people, including some Nation of Islam members, feel like it wasn't accurate in terms of how it was portrayed on the screen. Like they wasn't like training people to beds or whatever people were saying then. And also, people critique the body language of Brother Nigel. I think he did a great job too, but people were talking about, will Malcolm have his hands in his pocket when he's talking to somebody? Or his shoulders slouch or whatever? They were just doing a nitpicky stuff.
Well,
and
listen.
Also with John Carlo, I think his name is John Carlo Esposito. He's a great character actor. He's one of my favorite actors. But his portrayal of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. was troubling to me. It was actually too comical, too goofy. It wasn't really respectful towards the man. I think a better portrayal was Harriet Lennox III's Keep the Faith. His version of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. is the best portrayal I've seen so far in film. So what's your take on that?
Well, I'm not. I knew Dr. Powell. I love a belated brother. I love him. Mm-hmm. I love him dearly, and him and my mom were very close. In fact, Reverend Congressman Powell, what they did to him, was he let it get to him. My mother tried to keep him up. In fact, I have a photo when they were trying to arrest him, and this is recorded, and I can speak on this. This is recorded, my brother, in the Library of Congress, when they wanted to arrest Powell after he had won re-election, and they were trying to arrest him so he couldn't take his seat back in Congress. And my mother organized clandestinely so he could appear back in the Capitol and before they know it, he was sitting in his chair in disguise, and here's Adam Clayton Powell. And that there is a legal procedure for you to, I'm not going to go into depth, but my mother's involvement there and getting Congressman Powell back into his elected seat in the House. He was strong brother. He had come a long ways from the 30s. He had gotten so many bills that all of Americans, every single soul, black, brown, green, red, or yellow, have benefited in some way. It's not perfect from his work. He stood on the shoulders of his father and Abyssina Baptist Church and others, but he still has to carry the torch, and so my mother supported him as well, stood with him when they stood, him and my mother and Congressman Powell, with the students who were demonstrating at City College when they took over the City College campus. That was in Amsterdam magazines. Subsequent to that, when he was down, my mother went to visit him. He was the first one to receive the Malcolm X Black Achievement Award. I have a picture of that with Congressman Powell at his home in Bimini, and my mother is presenting him the first African American of us. We choose our heroes. This is our hero. And that's how my mother wanted. So where in the nation do you know that any black organization that has gone out of this stature and presented a black man or woman an award for Black Achievement, a Malcolm X Black Achievement Award, and supporting someone. My mother did that. She supported other people for them to succeed and what they needed to do. So you're right. To get someone to act Congressman Powell, you know what? Being there, having known this man myself, having known my mother's love for Reverend Congressman Powell, having known the love of my uncle for his brother, and what they shared together as men of power, speaking truth to power, I cannot honestly, brother, condemn what the character that they have. I have to tell you the truth. You have to speak to someone else. It's not perfect. I know there's a lot of people, but neither every depiction of Jesus that's played, or Moses, of Abraham, has never been, or of Muhammad. Peace be upon all the prophets. Mashallah, peace be all the prophets. That there will be people who will nitpick, the naysayers. But when I hear that, I say, what have you done lately? Have you bled? When I hear people criticize my uncle or Congressman Powell or Dr. King, as my mother had said to me when I was critical of our beloved hero, Dr. Martin Luther King, that I did not like. And she said, pulled me aside, shut up, Rodnell. This is a black man who is out here fighting for what he believed in. He's not out here pimping some black woman or hustling or selling drugs. He's not out here talking about how he can make more money. He's out here talking about something that has to do about us. It may not be the methodology, it's the same as Malcolm, because she told Malcolm the same thing, okay? Malcolm the same thing, and she understood what Malcolm was doing. She understood. That's why you have, in the National Civil Rights Museum, we have now come out with the other film, the behind-the-scenes relationship, quietly done between Malcolm, not just the picture you see, another symbol without substance of Malcolm and King smiling and meeting each other. There were things that went on before and after that. So I, in all truthfulness, as far as the character that plays Dr. Powell, I cannot condemn it at all.
But he was short, too. Why are they short guys? Because Powell was a tall guy. He was 6'4", 6'3", too, like Malcolm, right?
Brother man. Be careful of talking about shortness. And fingers and feet. Somebody was president of the United States. I think he might take umbrage with that on the hand. Okay, and he's president. So let's leave the short stuff out of it, because you have a man in the White House who people have commented on something of his or another that's short, but there he stands. Okay, and I have met Donald Trump. I know how tall he is. You know, he's got some padded shoulders, but
he's not 6 feet tall. He's not over 6 feet tall. I thought he was 6'2" or something like that.
Well, no, he's tall. He may be wearing lifts. I can't speak on that. But my mother was buying the building instead of buying the Teresa Hotel. She was in the process of buying the building before buying the Teresa Hotel in New York. Subsequent to that, we bought another building. But she wanted to buy the building that Trump ended up buying. That's why he did it, because you could get the building for $1.
Wow.
But him, his father, and all, they got it, and I happened to be. My mother wanted me to go down one day, and the building was open, and lo and behold, I'm going in the building, and I come out, and who do I see? I didn't know who he was at the time, but I didn't know who he was. It's just he had this car with an antenna on the back of the hood and all this business, and this tall guy, but. I didn't introduce myself. I didn't know who he was. I just passed him because I was standing waiting for my ride to pick me up, and there he is. But he has his history in New York, him and his family, and we're aware of his history and who he is. But and he's not short. Okay, in height. I can't speak on anything else, and I'm not going to bother the brother that's playing Adam Powell. So let's don't go there. Let's move on to something else, because that is nitpicking. I will say people have to do their research. The thing is, you must remember, he is playing a character. How many black young men and women and children know who Powell was before this part? Just think about that. That's the positive. He is playing a man that 90%, I don't agree. I didn't write the script. But he's playing a man that our people don't know anything about, our young people. You and I know. Okay, you and I know.
Not because of school, though, because I just have intellectual curiosity to know, just do the research. But this is what I'm saying. The point I'm making is that I'm tired of people taking these Hollywood movies or series as the factual thing. If they just told the truth about black people history, it reads like a superhero book. It's like you look at, this is Black Music Month, Charlie Parker. If you just told the truth about Charlie Parker, that he practiced 15 hours a day on the saxophone for 4 years, that's amazing. Brother, you just told the truth about who we are as a people.
Brother man,
all that stuff they do in Hollywood.
Brother man, wait a minute, brother. You're talking another universe. You're talking about making capitalist money. This is the land of capitalism. What is it you do not understand, my brother? Apparently you haven't lived. When I say you, don't get me wrong, brother Hurd. I've been talking for years. So I love you, my brother. You call me all the time. You support our May 19th. So I'm not putting you down on your position. When I say you, I mean those who think similar, of the same mindset. See, I've studied European Americans, and I lived in Europe and went to their universities, and my mother supported that, so I could study and learn the character, learn the nature of a thing, as Malcolm talked about. And let me tell you, in Europe, especially in the Scandinavian countries, they're not all into this hyper stuff when they're talking about their history and characters. That's why they don't make the money that Hollywood does. Okay, these European films, France, England, their actors, they do not make, the money that Hollywood does. You can go to China or India. They make, even on their history. So, in fact, Hollywood got a lot of stuff that they're doing from Chinese and African and Asian opera, over-dramatizing. If you see, I'm married to an Indian, and the biggest producers of movies in the world is India. They produce India and China. They produce more like a grain of sand on the beach, But they
call Bollywood, right? Is Bollywood over there?
There's Bollywood, there's Nollywood, and there's Yingwood, Leave that alone, Hollywood and Florida have learned the history. There's a history here, my brother, and you're not going to make money on the kind of capital money in this Western world based on fact if you want to make money. And I can tell you from someone who has a legacy, Jim McCormick, the founder of IMG, who partnered with International Management Group, who partnered with the great golfer Arnold Palmer, the largest sports management group on the continent, in the world. All the sports, a lot of the tournaments, you name it. And I met Jim. I used to play professional tennis back in the 70s, and he was building his corporation up. And as a professional tennis, trying to be a professional tennis player on the side, he was recruiting tennis players to be part of his group. Years later, when I wanted to do my book and looking for an agent, I didn't end up with IMG, but I called Mr. McCormick, who I knew over the years. I just picked up the phone and gave him a call, and I asked him, I said, listen, this is what I have, this is what I want to do, and he took my call, believe it or not. Just one call. I didn't leave a message. He got a secretary, he took the call, and he was appreciative of things that I had been doing in tennis. So I told him what I wanted to do now, and he put me on to one of his vice presidents at the time that he was starting up a literary division for his athletes to do their biographies. And I spoke to his vice president and Jim together, and one of the things that they told me about entertainment in America and in the capitalist world, how it works. And Jim, God bless his soul, he's moved on, he's passed on, I'm sorry, and he left his wife, Betsy Negligent, and his partners to run IMG. But I thank Jim, and there's something that, as you're saying, Ron, about Hollywood and these films, what Jim told me and his VP, Rodnell, what do you want to do with your book? And I'm quoting Jim here and his partner. Rodnell, what do you want to do with this book on Malcolm? He says, sounds like a fantastic book. I'm very interested in reading it. But what do you tell me? How can we help you? What do you want to do? I said, I want to publish a book, and I need an agent. He says, well, so what do you want to do with the book? What is the book about? I said, you know what it's about. It's about Malcolm X, family, yada, yada, yada. He says, so what do you want to do? He kept asking me. I said, I want to publish it. And he says, so you want to publish this book. And do you want to, I said, I want to publish a book. And when he kept asking what I want to do, I want to publish a book and I want to make money. He said, you can't do both. And he said to me, you can't do both. I said, what? He said, you can't do both. And I want to tell you something, what he told me then, and this is in the early 90s, that relates to today and all the sexism you see on TV, and this one said that, and that one said this. And this is the man who founded IMG, co-founder IMG with the great Arnold Palmer. These people I knew personally. And then later Palmer supports Tiger Woods. And you have to know what goes on in history and behind the scenes. Jim said to me, you can't do both, Rodnell. It's not happening. That's not real. This is not America, where you can tell your uncle's story as you want it and make money. It doesn't work like that. If you want to make money, Rodnell, I need something scintillating. He says, what do you want scintillating? I don't have anything scintillating. He says, Rodnell, you didn't hear me. Do you want to make money? I says, yes. And I want to publish the book, the story, what it is. He said, no, it doesn't work like that. You can't do both. Forget about it. And if you're not interested in making money, he didn't insult me. He didn't any innuendos or say anything like that. He said, Rodnell, we cannot help you if you want to make money and you want to publish the story of your uncle, unless you have some scintillating that you can put in there. Don't you have something? And I said, well, and that's why some people tried to misquote my memoir of Seventh Child now that I said Malcolm did this and that. It's not even in there, but people tried to twist it as that to make it sound scintillating. I never said anything about Malcolm doing anything scintillating. I just point of fact what happened around Malcolm, and that was not Malcolm. Things that were going on. You have to read the book. Just like Malcolm going to prison. He didn't have to go. My parents could have bailed him out from going, and he shouldn't have been arrested. All right? Just like they closed the case files. The files are sealed. Why would they seal the case files of Malcolm X in perpetuity? Why? If he's such a bad criminal, why? Do they have the case files sealed of John Dillinger? Of James, the killer, the killer of this guy that was in prison, the satanic guy, whatever his name was, I don't know. James Jeffrey Manson. Is his case file sealed? Mm. So why are the case files sealed of Malcolm X? Why?
I want to talk to you about the Netflix series of Who Killed Malcolm X. Did they approach you about working on this series? I read the Carl Evans review.
Good.
I really appreciate that. It was very insightful.
Great. I'm glad you did that. Yes, I've been approached by several people, and there are people who are working on things, and I've had some conversations with several. I had conversations initially with Netflix. They were talking to me with one of their house people, Negroes, for about a year, running the same program, same game that they wanted to put down with my mother. And I don't know, apparently they didn't do their forensic research about my mother or who my mother is or who my relationship to my mother and her relationship to wanting to do the movie. These people, they, just like any industry, they can put the wrong people to do a job and they misstep. And obviously this young lady, she was trying her best for more than a year, brother, calling me and emailing me, just calls. And I had to get kind of creative in not insulting a young African-American woman, the woman you see that is in the documentary, but acting like with me that I'm one of her house brothers. Yeah, in the slave house. You seen the movie The Django, did you not? With
yeah, Uncle Stephen. Yeah, I see.
Okay, well that type of mentality, that type, and that's how I was approached. That's how my mother was approached, and that's how I've constantly been approached. But well, not constantly. I don't want to say, but about 70-80% of the time. And I take the position, and I was raised by my parents. It's not about the dollar. Okay, I stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. I am here because of the love of my parents and my aunts here in Boston and my family. I am here because of Malcolm's father and mother. I am here because of all my grandparents on both sides. I am here. And our ancestors, those black men, women, and children who've lost their lives, especially our sisters. So I am our women. I've seen in my time and now today how our black women are being accosted, or any woman, black or white. It doesn't matter to me how a woman is mistreated. When you can mistreat your woman in any kind of way, what the Creator has given us a partner, and you're going to mistreat the partner, and that will raise and birth your child, and you call yourself a man. To me, no, you're not a man. There's no kind of man. If you want to be a man, and what you can do to a woman, come do it to me. Approach another man. Leave the women out of it. And that's the problem we have today. That's a big problem. So that's all I want to say on that.
So what is your take on the have you seen the documentary series?
I've seen it. I've seen all of the series of Disney. I've seen it all. As I said, it's a documentary. It's not a documentary. It's not a documentary. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's a drama series fictional, based on fact. That's exactly what it is. It's a drama series, fictional, based on fact. Talking facts. Fact, Malcolm was Malcolm X, Sheikh Al-Hajj Malik Al-Shabazz. He did those things for drug treatment. Okay.
Oh, I'm not talking about the Godfather Harlem. I'm talking about the Netflix documentary.
The Netflix, the same thing. Netflix is a joke. That's just a joke. Let me just say that right here. It's a joke. Straight up, Carl couldn't have. Carl had, he's an investigative reporter, and he was mentored by Katharine Graham there at the Washington Post. That's what he used to do. He was a reporter there and a writer for them, and he was mentored by those Post people. So Carl, he has done great research. There are things that he knows, and there are things that he does not know. And I know he doesn't, because he had done something earlier on my mother, and talking about, is my mother, you can read it, he had it online, is my mother really the sister of Malcolm X, and really was she born here, and all that. He hasn't done the work.
Well, I think, Carl, I when I read his thing on the Netflix series, then he started talking about OJ. He lost me, because you didn't even throw in OJ. When he got the letter to the DA, whoever, about the reopening of the case about Norman Butler and all that. I like some of the stuff he was saying, make you think. I don't trust any one source for the 100% truth on anything. I do all my research.
Well, you should. You should. And that's
Malcolm would say. Malcolm teach you that, right? He said, just do the research.
Do the research, and then, my brother, when you do the research, the forensic research, I'm putting the forensic in there, but that's what he talks about. When you do the research, he talks about, and it's forensic, critically analyze your research. What do they do out here in science? Malcolm was a philosopher, a scientist, a scholar. Malcolm wrote poetry. People don't know him. Uncle Malcolm wrote poetry. There's a poetry book Uncle Malcolm had written. I have some of Uncle Malcolm's poetry. The first poem I ever had in my life, he didn't write it, but I got it from him. It was by Rudyard Kipling. And by Rudyard Kipling, but Rudyard Kipling got it from someone else in India.
That's the European way, right? They take our stuff, they appropriate other people's stuff.
Of course. Same as Jungle Book and the Boy in the Jungle with the tiger running around and all that. They're good at that. Don't. Listen, brother.
They the best.
Let's leave. That's what they do, and they're good at. They do it to their own. They're the master. They're the master crook. That's why they call him the devil. Malcolm called him the blonde, blue-eyed devil. You're doing the acts, and everybody, he's a racist. No. There are black devils out here, too. What do you think a house Negro is? What do you think that thing was in that movie Samuel Jackson played? Man, you see the eyes of that thing. Listen, when I saw him and standing there, listen, that man scared me, and it was a movie.
Right.
Samuel Jackson, because I've met those people, okay? Mm-hmm. I've met them house Negroes, all right? and his boss man, his slaveholder, I think it was Leonardo DiCaprio, played it right. He said, I don't know what to do with that boy. And I've seen him down south. He better at being the master in the master's house than the master is.
It was disturbing, man, because Leonardo DiCaprio said he was disturbed by that portrayal. It really bothered him deeply.
Well, it should bother him deeply, but I found that to give credit to why, I wondered, and I did some research too, brother. I went, wait a minute, I said, Samuel Jackson can't play that character as good as he did. And listen, he upset me that I swore, brother, after that movie for 2 years. If I think I'm going to have to walk across the street, because I think if I see him, I'm going to jump on him. Okay, then you read about me. But the thing of it is, I know he was acting, but to be that good in character, I did some research on the brother, and I know how now he got into the character. I understand. I understand what he went through, and he went deep. He went deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I understand it. Okay, that's more. That ain't what he did. Wasn't acting. That was real.
Yes, sir. You know what? The time is flying by real fast. I don't want to, don't monopolize your time, but I just want to ask several quick things.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hakim Jamal. He was a cousin of Malcolm X. He wrote the book On the Dead Level. About
who you talking about? Whose cousin?
Malcolm's cousin, right? Hakim Jamal from Boston. Hakim, the co-founder of Kwanzaa.
Yeah. Oh.
I don't know. I read about him when I was researching a couple of years. I said, he's an interesting dude. He died of violent
death. A lot
of
people, brother. Let me just back up. A lot of people say they're related to us because they know us aren't. But maybe he's talking spiritually.
Okay. I think it was like a marriage, I don't know. But while reading, because you can't trust everything you read either, of course. But he wrote a book called On the Dead Level. Have you heard of that book?
Yes. There are several people married into our family, including Captain Joseph in New York. He married.
Really? Captain Joseph was wow.
After Malcolm, he married one of our cousins. And then just like Farrakhan, one of his sons married into Elijah Muhammad. And we got
all in the family
members running around, brother. Let me just say that. So
I think he's a cousin by marriage. I think he was a cousin by marriage.
Yes. And in so being, you hear things and you see things. But see, in Malcolm's family, coming all the way from down south, and our legacy and coming out of Africa and Asia, we don't talk about everything that's in our family deep, that even those that are married in. It's a saying that, there are things you say and there are things you will say in public that you say in public, but or that you don't say in public that you'll say in private. And there are things that you say in private that you'll say amongst those that are married into your family. And then there are things that you'll say only with those who are blood family members, because that's blood family business. Mm-hmm. You don't share that. That's up to the one that you're married to or your sibling. If they want to step out of bounds and talk about your blood family's business, what you stand on and who you are as a family, okay, and maybe you're the one you married, we don't agree. And many people in our family, we don't agree with the person you married, but that's who you married. We see who you married, but we don't want you to share certain things. We have that in my family, the Little family, or the Sursleys, or the Grays, or the Millers. They don't share it, okay? My wife's family is Indian, Asian, from India, South India. from Karnataka, where the black Indians are, the real Indians, indigenous people, not the Parsis or the Patels that come from Iraq, Iran, that married in with the British when they were there and they married a few doctors. None of that stuff. There are things that I know when my wife's family will share with me, and I know that I don't go any further, and I keep that which is theirs to them. And when I know they're doing anything, I walk away and go somewhere. So anybody that's around us that has anything, rightfully so, you should take it with a grain of salt. A grain of salt, okay? And see who they are and where they're coming from. Are you a blood family member? And then if you are, who is your father or mother? What was your direct connections? And there are very few of Malcolm's blood family members that know anything of us, including Aunt Betty, because there were things that Uncle Malcolm and his brothers and his siblings, they wouldn't discuss with Aunt Betty. Uncle Betty was a young woman who was had been on her own for a while, coming from a foster home with foster parents, and making her way as a black woman in America, as we all are fosters of some parent or another. We're lost here in America. We're not, we're lost. And she was found by her, who became her husband, Malcolm. So there are things, knowing that, from my mother's own words in talking to her, that we would not share. Even her husband would not share with her, because that's family business.
So all Malcolm's siblings are deceased, right? Correct? Is that correct?
The last one was Aunt Hilda. They're all gone now.
Yeah. What year did she pass?
Oh, my brother, what year? She was 96 years old.
Wow.
Aunt Hilda, and she didn't even have to pass then, except she was like, two sisters alike. They didn't want to take certain medications.
Right, but she lived to be 96 though. That's amazing.
Yeah, so she had got that far. So I can't say much about Aunt Hilda. She was a fighter. It's been about 10 years now. 10 years. My mother passed in 1996.
Okay.
And 94, 96, and Aunt Hilda 10 years later, 2006, I believe.
Okay.
So that has been traumatic to lose her, because she had a lot of material as well, and we have an issue right now with a cousin that illegally has some papers and documents that she's hoarding, that she doesn't have legal access to as a family member, because she doesn't have the will. But we haven't, I'm speaking of my aunt's cousins, or her siblings' children, my aunt's siblings' children. Mm-hmm. We all supposed to have rights and access to that, so we're going to have to somehow get in the back room. But we have people like who you're talking that are spying around and sniffing around, trying to do things. So, that's there. And that applies to the person you're talking about as well. I don't care who they are. And I'm saying this to you. I don't care who he is or she is. People write stories. We had that with Bruce Perry. He gets a little bit. And if anyone, and I hate to say this to you, Brother Ron, if anyone really knows a lot, when I say a lot, this man has spent decades and got angry with Professor Manny Marable at Columbia University, who did that book along with Zishan Ali. But Professor Marable didn't have control the last few years because he was ill, and this Robert Cohen at Columbia University took over and dissected the way he wanted. And the book is a joke itself, and I have evidence of it because the material that was put forward to that, I have some of it from the people that they've interviewed, and I have some of the recordings and information and what went down and what happened. So that book isn't real, because Bruce Perry, who actually did the forensic research and knew a lot of facts, but deliberately wrote in his book on Malcolm, and then went to Columbia and gave some information, but dissected to come out the way they wanted it to at Columbia because Bruce Perry, a European American who's associated with the socialist group in America, these European American socialist group, and involved in Pathfinder Press and that whole thing. So they had an agenda, and the agenda was and Aunt Betty had a contract even with them, the Socialist Workers' Party of America, and they had these bookstores around the country called Pathfinder. I know you must have heard about them, and they had a lot of books in there, their take on Malcolm X, and they were upset with Aunt Betty that she didn't renew the contract with them, and Bruce Perry took umbrage with that, and his group of people. So they go to Columbia after Professor Marable has no more input and was ill, and take over the project.
And, Dr. Manny Marable dies right before the book comes out, which is interesting. I mean, he was recovering from that double lung transplant.
You're right.
He died all of a sudden before the book. So you think that's kind of suspicious then? That he loses control of the narrative?
There's nothing suspicious about when you're dealing with Negro. You know,
right.
It was released some years earlier how much money he got in Jet magazine. I know what it was in Jet magazine or Ebony, but I know what I know from Aunt Betty and the family, and what Aunt Betty was doing and her problems she was having with Pathfinder Press, and the problems she had already done the same thing that she had done, and my mother told her not to, with Pathfinder Press or the Pathfinder bookstores and the Socialist Workers' Party, that she received money and the contract ran out. And so they wanted to renew a contract, and she wouldn't go along with their contract. So I find that suspicious as well, what happened to her. Okay? And I let my cousins know that. Now, what they deal with and what they do with that, it's up to them. These are grown women, but I find that very suspect. And then they blame it. See, this is how this game goes down: divide and conquer, and put it on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm very suspect, and I talked to my cousin, her grandson, who was supposedly set fire. So I know what happened.
He did that. You don't believe he did that? He was
no. He did not. I know he did not do it intentionally. Okay, I know that. But there were things that happened that the whole thing is just not kosher. Let me just say that.
I mean how he died in Mexico City. I mean, that's
as I just said, the whole thing is not kosher.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you know what he went down there for, I just told you. Okay, I just told you, Brother Ron. He went down there for what? And who invited him? And who was Betty involved with when I just told you about Pathfinder Press and these people, these European Americans? And I told you, as you said yourself, what happened with Professor Manny Marable.
Yeah.
You see, our people live under, I don't live under any illusions. I deal with what's real, what I know is fact, what I know that's been in my family, not some other people who hypothesize or theorize or surmise. Malcolm said of himself, don't try to understand my life and why I've acted the way I have. Don't try to interpret my life. Chronicle it. That's all I try to do with anything that I do that has to do around my uncle or around my family. I don't try to interpret his life or my family's life. I just chronicle it. And to do otherwise is to be unjust to them and myself and my family.
What do you think about Leon Amir 4X? Was that accidental death, or was that
Leon Amir? You're talking about in Los Angeles?
No, he was. I guess that was in Boston. I believe they found him dead in the hotel. He was Malcolm.
Go, brother. You take.
I'm trying to get as much as I can.
No, you're taking me back. Oh, you're taking me back. No, we know what that was. There's FBI reports. You'd have to go to get the files released, brother. Okay, because he came to us. Okay, and he told us he told us what was happening, and my mother. He came to my mother directly, and he asked my mother to reach Brother Malcolm, and he wanted to have a statement to Brother Malcolm. See, you got to do some stuff in Boston. Aubrey Barnett was on Post Magazine, who decided to even Post Magazine on the cover. And then Malcolm with Brother Aubrey Barnett, who was an accountant in the Nation of Islam. And Uncle Malcolm put him in charge of accounting and looking at some books in Chicago, here in Boston and Chicago. They were on WEEI here in Boston. Malcolm and Aubrey Barnett, and that whole thing, you see. And to put it on Minister Farrakhan, no, Mr. Farrakhan couldn't kill a fly. I'm not going to put that on Minister. We know that. We know. He talk a lot, like a lot of these ministers do. In the nation, Christians, all of them, Hebrew, right. Jews, Muslim, talk a lot. They do more talking, brother, and just talk. Okay, and they're good talkers, but Minister Farrakhan, that's just not him. That's not his character. And my mother understood that. Uncle Malcolm understood that. So we know, in reference to the assassination, we know exactly. Okay, who killed Malcolm? Pick up on this. Listen to me now. Listen to me. This man, they said, that shot Uncle Malcolm. That's in the Netflix movie. Ask yourself this. He came out of the Newark Mosque, yes?
Yeah.
Who was the imam at Malcolm X's funeral? Who was the imam? Do you know?
No, sir.
Okay. Hisham Jabba.
Mm-hmm.
Hisham Jabba. He came out of that same mosque.
Okay.
All right? And he did I forgot what you call it now. My mind's in Islam. The prayers for Uncle Malcolm. My mother and Aunt Betty. My mother paid. Aunt Betty didn't need. That's all that Hollywood stuff. Aunt Betty didn't need to raise any money to bury Uncle Malcolm. My mother paid for the full funeral, the full everything. Okay, whatever Ozzie Davis and the people give some money for the flowers. My mother didn't want anybody raising money to bury her brother. She bought the grave that Aunt Betty and Uncle Malcolm's in. She bought that plot. I have the bill of sale, okay, for the plot, and for the bill that everything was paid for by Ella Collins. We didn't need to ask any people for money, but that's what Betty wanted to do, and her people, and then they set up a fund, and my mother had nothing to do with that, and didn't want to have anything to do with that, because that was lawyer Percy Sutton to handle. But nobody, Percy Sutton, my mother wasn't having anybody bury her brother. She buried other family members. She buried Malcolm's father. She buried Malcolm's father's sisters, Aunt Sarah and Aunt Gracie. All right, she buried her grandfather, and they all were shipped down south except Uncle Malcolm. So my mother was going to do that, but Aunt Betty wanted it here and thought it was better, and some Muslims wanted it here in New York. Okay, we did that. So, but we know, and the person has not been identified, that person who actually did the kill. If you remember, he confessed there was another individual who was there on the stage. He admitted on ABC in 1992, I think it was 92 or 2002, he was an informant for Boss. Okay? He was an FBI informant. And Yuri Kochiyama, was the first person on the stage, okay, to Malcolm with my uncle's head in her lap. The second person was the FBI informant, and then the third was Betty. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Third was Aunt Betty. And the person that was up on the stage was an FBI informant. Well, my mother identified the FBI informant in 1967. I have the article in the paper. It's in the paper. Okay? She identified who the person was. And now in 92 or 2002, he admits to the fact that he was informant for the FBI. Now, how did you think my mother knew that? How do you think my mother in 1968 knew he was an informant? Because Uncle Malcolm knew. Uncle Malcolm knew the kill. There was a list. And when that FBI informant got up to Malcolm, he took Uncle Malcolm, if if you go back and did a lot of research, you know, and some other media, he was going to announce who he had already partially announced. He had told Dr. King, he had told James Farmer, he told all the black leaders, do your forensic research and warn them that their lives. Now, I don't know. I know Uncle Malcolm told my mother, and my mother didn't tell me. She only told me even certain things, because a lot of times I fell asleep. They'd be talking all night, all day, be going. Okay? They just be going, and I'm a young man of tween. I got to get my rest, man. So I fall asleep. But I do know Uncle Malcolm told us, and there was a list. And the people involved, okay, who were financing, it goes deep, brother. And some of the same people involved in Kennedy assassination. Mm-hmm. And in Robert's assassination, his brother. And then you have to go back, and that history will come forth. There are people working on that now as we speak. It was already announced last January, some of it, but then there's certain things that they ain't even going to know. But some of it was released last January, and some people were doing a documentary, coming out of Hollywood, and they're doing some people are behind it, including a former FBI or CIA person who's supporting it. But it was announced last January of last year, in the Washington Post or the New York Times, and they have some serious information. So, and that stuff takes time. It takes time and a lot of logistics. So don't fool yourself. But you can use a black face. I'll give you something that you and your audience, before President Johnson, when he became president, he was Senate. He was in the Senate. Mm-hmm. And Hoover, these are probably the FBI files, and it isn't just Hoover. He's a puppet as well. Wanted to, but as they have it in the files, and Johnson, that they were to felt that if they divide, get Malcolm and King to fighting, they'd kill each other off. And so, what was the plan? How could they, Hoover and Johnson, get these two to kill each other off? And this was before President Johnson became president or vice president. Okay? So you have to research that. Then you also have to research why, and Malcolm said it himself, you have to do research about someone, the individuals who were very wealthy in America. And these individuals, the same individuals that why President Nixon removed the gold standard. And you have to research that and why that was removed and the people behind that. Mm-hmm. Everything you see in Washington, the people, including the president, he may think he runs the program. He don't run no program. He thinks he does. Okay? Every time somebody sits in that chair, okay, they're given a book. It's an edict. It's Rome. Go spend some time in Washington, my brother. This is something Malcolm would do. He spent a lot of time in the Library of Congress. And if you spend a lot of time in the Senate and the House and look up on the walls and around the ceiling, see what you see, who these people honor, going back to Caesars and emperors and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Who did Rome and Greece pay tribute to? Who's your pope and who they pay tribute to? What is power? Power is knowledge. Knowledge is king. And when you understand that, and unfortunately who's there, and a lot of our people are running around, this guy talking about President Trump, who's in the office now, or President Obama. Our folks didn't like President Obama. They complained about him. I have a brother who complained about that, and he didn't do it. I wasn't even going to vote for President Obama, even though I knew him and met him when he was 15. But then he said something one day. I was going there, but then I changed my mind. I was going to vote for Hillary just because she was a woman. Mm-hmm. Just to mess with the generals, because I met Mrs. Clinton. And years when she was in Arkansas and her husband was governor. So I knew a little bit. As I said, I played professional tennis. So professional tennis was financed by industry, banks, insurance companies, you can't finance an organization and these professional anything that's in sports without money. Okay, serious money. It's a multi-trillion-dollar business, and there are people you see and meet. So my thing was with Mrs. Clinton. If you're going to mess with the chief of staff, is not going to want to listen to no white woman, short, blonde, phony blonde, telling them what to do. All right, and the thing is, she lost it. Neither are they going to listen to a black one. That's hard enough. All right, so President Obama began to understand that. Malcolm understood that. Okay, he understood that, and he understood what we as a people need to do. Understand the nature of a thing and where we're dealing with. You had some other questions. I'm sorry to go on.
No, I mean, you got so much information. I was saying people gonna have to do their research. I'm glad that people are now figuring out that you can't trust the mind control news. You got to do your own, because Malcolm knew that the media was very powerful in shaping people's reality. But you talk about Obama. That's interesting. You said you met him at 15, because I know in the Black conscious community, there's a theory that Obama is Malcolm X's biological son.
No, he ain't no biological nobody. I knew the man when he was 15 years old. I met him in Hawaii.
How did that meeting come about? Like, how did you meet him?
As I said, I played professional tennis. I was on the ATP tour, or I should say, because I don't want to hear any flack back about some of my. I was playing at. Playing at being a professional tennis player. So not to put down some of the brothers that and sisters in professional sports, because they sacrifice a lot. So and I sacrifice too, but they're sacrificing sports. I didn't want to diminish that, and that may be an excuse, but that there was a reason why I was there and why I was allowed to be there, and I love the sport. But I was in Hawaii for Hawaiian Open, and quite frankly, professional tennis gave me the opportunity to travel incognito and not be obvious as a black man traveling everywhere from America, why I'm here and why I'm there and all that. And the sport offered me that opportunity to do research and travel and not be obvious. And so that was, that was an opportunity for me, and my mother supported that and allowed me to do it. And I was her information officer and for the organization Afro-American Unity.
So how were you able to know? I mean, like Barack Obama, y'all meet formally? Like how did he stand out?
How it happened when I was in Hawaii for the Hawaiian Open on the island of Maui. When I have time, I'm doing research, and I had family. Well, we had family. We had family in Hawaii. I was looking for the family, and they had one family member had been there. His children and grandchildren been there since World War II, and stationed there, and lost contact. And I was there to find the black community where they lived. And so I was in Oahu, Hawaii, and it happened by accident, actually. There was this basketball and tennis court, and it was late in the day. I was tired, and I needed to go practice some serves. And next to the basketball and tennis court was this Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and I parked my car. And I had practiced for a while before I moved over to Maui, where the tournament was being held. I wanted to spend a few days in Oahu looking for the black community and our family. And so I went into this Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and I was sitting there, and in walks this young man with another black young man and two European Americans. And I had the tennis court and basketball court sits right next to the McDonald's, so I could look out the window and see these young men playing. And he was a good basketball player. I'm just sitting there eating my food, and I'm watching them, and they come in later, and We talked. I didn't know he was Obama at the time, but we talked for about 45 minutes because I asked him, since he was black and had this big afro, I'm saying, okay, this brother must know where the black community is. So he got this afro, so I'm thinking he must know something. So that's what he had. What you see, he had that. And slender as he is, he was always slender. We talked, and I found his character. I was fascinated by. He asked me a lot of questions. He asked awful lot of questions. It was difficult for me for him to give me what I wanted. I'm trying to get what I want, and he's trying to get from me what he wants. So I wanted to know where the black community, but I have to tell you, he had no clue. He didn't know of any black community. Because he told me, I don't know of any black community. I don't live there. I don't know where that is. So he told me where he lived and who his family was, and how that came to be was because he didn't know anything about no black community, and he told me who his family was, but he wanted to know about us as a people. Well, he'd never been stateside. He'd been at that time somewhere else. He had been in the islands. I don't remember, but I know
he usually come up.
He had been. His family had taken him to other countries, but not to the continental United States.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me as such. So he was very curious. He was very curious. The future president was very curious as to what is it like being American, and you're a black American like me, and you're from there. What's going on? I hope to go there someday. He was very. I found about him at that time, and then, as I said, I researched because I got involved with some of the indigenous people in Hawaii, some of the black folks, the indigenous, the Hawaiian people, and got to know more about them and the Queen and what happened on some of the islands and spent time with them. So to hear his interest, unlike you find other blacks in Hawaii who just happy to be in Hawaii, the sunshine and the beach, and then looking for a European American or Hawaiian woman, the same thing that American white guys do when they go down there, and they can find or rape our women or rape the island still, and that's what they do. And they feel they take serious, the military there as sailors. There's a serious history there about that. But that said, it seemed to me at the time, that bothered him, and he was conscious. And I know when I read his book now, I see that why he was so conscious, because he was very, very curious of what blacks were doing. So when I hear other people talk about they don't know if he's black or this or that and the other, don't know what you're talking about, and that's okay. Because further, I then met him here in passing at Harvard University when he was president, and asked to meet him. He said he would meet with me. We never did, and since we didn't, I went and spoke to a good friend of mine who encouraged me to write the book, Dean Epps, who was Dean of Students at the time. Mm-hmm. And we talked about President Obama and his position there at the Harvard Law School Forum, and since Malcolm was part of that. And it gets a little deep, and I will write about that later, because I understand why he put the President Obama put in his book about Malcolm the promise to power, and then in the Dreams of My Father, he mentions Malcolm in both books, and I understand that. But that's an inside perspective. I understand it from the young man I met in Hawaii. I understand from the young man that was at Harvard, who at Harvard Law School Forum, where Malcolm spoke, and President Obama listened to every one of those speeches. I know that from fact, not from him, but for Dean Epps, who I knew since I was 8 years old as a boy when Uncle Malcolm first spoke at Harvard. I was at that speech and every speech after, and met Dean Epps at that time, and we became good friends over the years. So I could speak directly to Dean Epps, Dean of Students at Harvard, about inquiring about President Obama, future president, while he was at Harvard, and I actually did a little spying on him while he was at Harvard. And you could do that with the parties. Parties usually work, but it didn't work with him. His party days were long over, and I met some young ladies that explained that didn't understand it. They thought he was kind of odd because he didn't get down with the brothers like everybody else. He was serious. He was serious. From what I know of the future president, he was very well disciplined and very well trained. He was targeted. I feel he was picked. He was picked to be by someone to be the person he became as president of the United States. That you can bank on. From my own insight, personal, hands-on experience. And as president of the United States, I have to say, I love him. I love him because the young man that I had met and the young man that I had, not from the books, not from the man that you see, I love the president and his wife because I also know the people that I knew, the same people he was dealing with in Chicago, a couple of them. So I admire him. We all get. He wasn't lost. He was finding his way. Anytime, how many of us in America, when you know your ancestry, and like Malcolm said, and Obama puts it in his book, you left your mind in Africa. Well, Obama went back to Africa more than once and twice, still goes, and he took his wife, and he takes his children. How many have you done that, my brother? Have you gone and sought your ancestry? Have you gone and found your great-grandfather in Africa?
No, I have not.
Have you spent time in Africa? When I say time, I don't mean come in like the rest of the house Negroes do, fly in a little Christian tour and bring some food and help the little darkies like they do, and then you jet out about the poor black. You're worse off than America than those Africans in Africa. So don't feel sorry for them. They got a heck of a lot going on than we do here because the minds of our people are there. Our legacy and our history, who we are as a people, are there. And you should spend some time, Brother Hurt. And I don't mean 6 months. I've been doing it for 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, so I understand. I understand what the Creator has given us. I understand what my mother meant. I understand what it is. Not fully. I'm still learning. There is so much. You can't have a people, my brother, on this planet that's millions, tens of millions of years, maybe even 1 billion years we've been on this planet. I'm talking about us as a black people. And that's been found out recently, too. Right now, they're up to 600, 700 million years. So that means that the dinosaur period that we were here. And there's evidence of that. It's documented, but you're not told, and it wasn't Europeans. So why? Why were we the first? And why were we the creators of civilization? And they hide it, and they continue. But it's been brought out more by Malcolm, by Dr. John Henry Clark, Asa Hilliard, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Ben Yohannan, so many, and Dr. Seti Sakur Diop, all these people in Africa and Asia. They just found the other day something, because these Europeans talk about, they think they knew something about the indigenous people of the Americas, and they just announced yesterday, the day before. They thought they knew how long the Mayans were here. Now they've taken the Mayans back 1,000, 2,000 years. They just found something in South America. Okay? So, and those are black folks. Those weren't Europeans. So why? Why were we've lost, that's like Malcolm said, more than any of us know. Those millions of years, how much do we know? And I have learned from, as my family has learned, as Uncle Malcolm have learned, and things that he learned from family members about science and medicine. I told you, in Malcolm's family, there were Masons, and and Eastern Stars. And there were things that people and knowledge that is there, and we have, and it's not passed along to our ancestors. I see no one dealing with these young people that are doing these so-called marches or demonstrations that are people of elders or some knowledge with these young people. They need guidance. They need not leadership. They're the future, as Malcolm said. The future is the young people in America, all of them. All of them. Every young soul in America. For America, Malcolm said, for this cancer, he believed for America to be saved, it could be saved through Islam, but it's also going to be saved through its young people, all of them, not just African Americans. Because if we know the truth, then it's incumbent upon us to take that truth and free others. We can't rest on those laurels. The world is in need, just like the environment. They're in need of what we have. It's already been given. We need to take the position that the Creator has given us. You can't get it from these Europeans. You don't go begging. That's what my mother talked about. You've been free. Stand up and walk. All you got to do, just stand up and walk. And those men that died, they stood up and walked. So leave them alone. Until you can bleed, and then you die, then you come back and tell me what you know. Other than that, I'm sorry.
Well, that's the way. And I got to ask you before we go, the Pinto, the Kenyan freedom fighter, the Mau Mau, he had a relationship with Malcolm, from my understanding, and he was killed in several days, maybe on February 24th, right after Malcolm. Do you believe that was connected to Malcolm's death?
I just told you. We know who killed Malcolm. Uncle Malcolm gave us an edict, me and my mother. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go, Ella. Let it go, Rodnell. And he looked in my eyes, grabbed my hand, and made me say to him that I will not do anything to avenge his life. That's not what it's about. Do not do that. And if you do that, you've lost. So he asked me to promise him. And that's been tough, I have to tell you, because I know I've been next to people who've been involved in things I could have done what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Just like you asked me about Leon Lemire. He came to us and he confessed to my mother and Uncle Malcolm and I what he had done about the attempted bombing of Malcolm's car. But because he came to us and told Uncle Malcolm and my mother and I, he was killed. There was another person killed in South Carolina. He was killed in a bathtub because he was working with Malcolm and my mother. You don't know about that. It was Alfred Q. Jarrett, Dr. Jarrett.
Oh.
And that will become, some people assassinated him. But we've had other people in our family assassinated. Malcolm wasn't the only one. You know, it was his father, some of his brothers, other family members in the South were assassinated because they dared to defy the white man wearing their military uniform. There's a whole lot of stuff. But we have the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House and the Foundation, and that stuff will be put in history and done in for future reference. But it's not necessary. I know my cousins would like to, but they are behind the curve on that. But on their emotions of their father, they have a right to feel how they want to feel. That is their father. I am the nephew of Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, and I knew this man. I buried him. I covered him up. You see that in pictures. Mm-hmm. You see that me at the morgue. So if anybody, and you have these people that are going after trying to kill my cousins, when they were just babies, and my uncle's wife and children, and you're going to ask me not to? The only person who could ask me not to take any revenge, because that's what it would have been. Mm-hmm. Anybody, because what would it do to me to take revenge or kill one or two men, black or white? And you see some of that when I did a terrible mistake. My mother wasn't happy, and she punished me for it at the takeover of Eastern Airlines Airport here at Logan Airport in Boston. I don't know if you know about that.
No, sir. You actually involved in that?
Pardon?
You was involved in trying to take over an airport?
there was no taking over the airport. We were trying to get someone out of town, and it was considered like a takeover, the airport.
Wow.
Because we went in there with some brothers, about 6 or 8 of us, and I was one of them with a shotgun, to not to do anything to some European Americans. We had a plan, but it was to fool people, to fool the Nation of Islam, to fool the intelligence community. And that was part of the plan. And I messed up. And it's a whole thing about the Callahan Tunnel in Boston and how we were traffic blocked, and they tried to, members of the Nation of Islam, isolate us and tried to block us off with 2 cars in the Callahan Tunnel and the traffic and everything. And we got to the airport and the Eastern Airlines terminal, and these black men going in with guns. There was only one gun. I had the gun. Someone else had the gun. It was my mother's gun, shotgun, and I had the bullets. I'm not giving somebody else that's carrying a gun, and I don't have the bullets. I want the gun and the bullets, so I kept the bullets, and the other person had the gun. We weren't going to shoot anybody, but we knew what we were supposed to do if somebody did, and it wasn't for any police or any white people. It was the people that chased us into the airport. It's all in the state records and FBI files.
Right.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about terror in America, it already happened at the airport.
Wow. So, what is the best way to support what you're doing, like the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House project, or what can we do if you want to support your mission or cause or contact you?
Contact the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House at gmail.com. And we have the Malcolm X, Ella Collins Family Foundation at 501 C3, and make a contribution to the Foundation for Educational Scholarships for graduate students. Contrary to what some of the media has picked up, there was African American students. No, we support the citizen student, what we call the foundation, the citizen student who volunteers in service in community and can prove they volunteered for 6 months or longer in the community doing volunteer service in America or anywhere in the world, really, but particularly in America, and they do not have to be African Americans, as long as they're graduate students. That is our focus on the graduate students. We don't wish to raise money for students who are seeking their baccalaureate. That's not our aim of the foundation. Because we know that's a training period. But those graduate students who have shown initiative and then they have volunteered while they're in school, in service and teaching in high school or teaching or working in a nursing home or supporting elders in some way or doing community service while in college, we support that effort through scholarship. And that's what we call citizen student. And that's our number one goal of the Malcolm X, Ella Collins Family Foundation. And the second is preserving the legacy of Sheikh El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, which is the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House here in Boston. That's a city-state and now recognized as a national landmark. And so we need quite a bit of, we need a 7-figure capital project fund to restore, preserve, and restore. You can go online and Google the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House in Boston, and you'll learn more about that. From the City of Boston has a site and information, and soon the state will have. We have the Malcolm X archive artifacts, some artifacts from the Malcolm X House at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Dillaway Thomas House Museum, which is in Roxbury. So there's a portrait there, and some of the artifacts from the Malcolm X, Ella Collins House is in the museum, which belongs to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And, of course, there is the exhibit at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., some of the artifacts of Malcolm there. So you can visit that. But more directly, you can make a tax-deductible contribution to the fund for restoring this capital credits, or for the house. You can do that, or you send your check here to the Malcolm X. Ella Collins House here in Boston, Massachusetts. It's tax-deductible. Well, and the Malcolm, just make a check out, to the Malcolm X. Ella Collins Family Foundation, Malcolm X. Ella Collins House here in Boston, Massachusetts. And that will go toward the scholarship fund of the foundation. So I hope that will, are you writing this down?
Oh yeah, I'm writing down. I'm writing it down. Make sure I include it. When I right. So I disseminate it with the show.
Right, but you can email me at Malcolm, all lowercase, about the foundation and the house at Malcolm X. Ella Collins House at gmail.com. That's Malcolm X. Ella Collins House at gmail.com. And any of your questions, feel free.
All right, excellent. Well, Brother Rodnell, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, people going to be really doing their research once they hear you speak, because you offering so much. And I can't believe it was almost 3 hours on this phone.
Well, brother, how long is it since we've last spoken?
It's been years, actually. It was crazy. It's been a while.
So that's not my fault. You've been on the phone.
Yeah, I know. I just
years. You just
when I come to Boston, I'm definitely going. You be one of the first people I'm gonna connect with.
Well, when you come, the city of Boston and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is spending $20 million to refurbish Malcolm X Park, which is a 10-acre park. It's next to the Malcolm X house. So the city of Boston, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has been, and the powers that be have been very supportive in the past and present. So we're pleased with that. Pleased with as I said, if you go online and you go onto Google or Bing and Google Malcolm X House Boston, and you'll get a lot.
Yeah, man. I'm appreciative of what you're doing, you and your son and other people the small group of committed people doing this amazing work to honor our righteous ancestor. So I want to thank you so much for representing your uncle's legacy so well. I really appreciate it.
And we do it internationally as well. We do it internationally as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're going to have to talk about the international impact of Malcolm in a very soon coming up discussion. But thank you so much, Brother Rodnell. In the words of Duke Ellington, we love you madly. Keep on producing and pushing.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yes, sir. You will.
Hey, everybody, this is Brother Ron. I am asking you all to do me a big favor. Think about supporting the We All Be movement. Your donation is tax deductible. The We All Be Group Incorporated is a recognized 501c3. And I'm just asking you all because I want to keep on bringing y'all quality work through the way that I know how to do best. And I'm going to sing my praises and toot my horn. A lot of y'all were not hip to Dick Gregory until Brother Ron brought him on the We All Be platform, until that Django review we did. Y'all seen another side of Judge Joe Brown, and Judge Joe Brown's message has been amplified. But it was We All Be that brought Judge Joe Brown to y'all back in 2014. And so many others. And we covered so many things. So help us out so we can help you all. Peace.